Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing the story, What If Naruto Built His Own Harem with Tsunami, Tsunade, Mikoto, Ayame, Anko, Karin, Hana, Temari, Tsume. This is part 5. If you're enjoying this fanfiction, make sure to smash the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe with the bell icon so you never miss the next part. Alright, let's begin part 5. Naruto landed on the ice with a crouched hand on the ice and his legs spread a little bit. Dodo! He shouted, gaining the attention of both Koyuki and Dodo Kazuhana. Koyuki looked hopeful but Dodo seemed pissed, wearing that black chakra armor of his. Impudent child, Dodo said, already upset about the fact that the treasure of snow was actually a heating generator made by his foolish brother. His hands went through the 5 required hand seals. Hyoten, Kokuryu Bofusetsu, he shouted, summoning the ice and snow around them to form a dragon of black snow. Naruto charged up a Rasengan in his right hand and charged forward. He dodged the dragon, and kept running on the ice, having eyes only for Dodo. Naruto's Rasengan barreled into the man and was getting progressively smaller. Naruto noticed a crack appear on the armor before Dodo raised both hands over his head and drove Naruto through the ice by slamming his fists down like a hammer. Naruto's head was busted open and mixed with the icy water. The only reason he wasn't knocked out was because of the water, and he was sure he had a concussion on top of various other injuries he had. Naruto got out of the water a ways off, and shook his head a bit, water and blood flinging a bit. His vision blurred a little, and he saw 4 of Dodo for a moment before it all came back into focus. Naruto hated using this technique. In the month it had been since he got back from finding Tsunade, this was officially his most hated technique. 2 clones popped up beside Naruto and began to manipulate the chakra around the Rasengan. It was dangerous to use, and the only reason he was even thinking about using it was because Dodo had to be stopped. And if an A-ranked technique didn't cut through that armor of his, an S-ranked would. Naruto and his clones rushed ahead as Dodo finished 6 seals this time. Hyoten, Soryu Bofusetsu. Dodo cried out, this time 2 of those black dragons forming from the ice and snow nearby, twisting together almost into a twister. Naruto's clones rushed ahead, the original had the Rasengan variant completely stabilized. No doubt it would be listed as a kinjutsu as well if Tsunade knew what it could do. The first of Naruto's clones jumped into the twister head-on and exploded, forcing the jutsu to destabilize. The second clone rushed at Dodo and ducked under the swing, dashing past the man and grabbing Koyuki, leaping up onto one of the large glacial-like pillars. Dodo was all the original Narutos and they didn't want Koyuki to get in the middle of the technique. Naruto dashed across the water, stepping on the broken ice as it melted because of the heating generator. Hyoten, Rasenhai Hana. Naruto drove his Rasengan variant into Dodo's chest and the armor cracked even more before failing, ice being formed on Dodo's chest and on Naruto's hand. The ball began to slow in its spinning and Naruto disengaged his hand from the jutsu and kicked himself off of Dodo, leaping away. In midair, the effects happened. Had a Byakugan or Sharingan user seen what happened, they would see Naruto's chakra spinning around in the air around Dodo, and when the ball exploded with chakra and ice, the absolute freezing abilities of it traveled along the spiraling chakra in the air, causing it to freeze the air and moisture around it into a spiral shape that was almost 20 feet across and at least 10 into the air. Koyuki could only stare in amazement. Her uncle, the source of her life being a hell, was trapped in that ice prison, and from her position so high in the air, she could see and understand the name. It looked like a spiraled blossom of ice. The clone she was with hopped down and took her over to Naruto who had his hand hidden, something she noticed but didn't ask about it. Good job Naruto, Kakashi said as he arrived on the scene and then noted the blonde holding his hand to hide it. What happened? Naruto sighed and showed his hand, the fingertips blackened with severe frostbite. Had it been anyone else, they would have lost their fingertips. Instead, Kakashi could see the effects of the Kyuubi's chakra already as the skin was forced to heal at an accelerated rate. My latest technique, it causes near instantaneous freezing. Naruto shook his head a bit before he realized that was a mistake. I also apparently have a concussion, he said before his body went limp and he slumped forward, caught by Kakashi. Kakashi shook his head slightly. He knew Naruto wouldn't die from a concussion, certainly not with the Kyuubi inside of him. He hefted the blonde up to carry him properly. Well, shall we go? Kakashi asked Koyuki, who offered a nod. Inside Naruto's mind, he was sitting in front of the cage before the Kyuubi, going over a visual representation of all of his skills up to date. Many of them were lethal already, and with Kakashi knowing about his Hyoten variant Rasengan, Tsunade was no doubt going to ban him from using it. I need a way to throw the damn thing, he said loudly and suddenly. Kyuubi shook her head and crossed her arms up under her bust. She had been watching the blonde closer for some time now. She wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to take advantage of his newfound abilities, much like a certain super pervert would. Instead, the blonde was indeed having a vast amount of, but he was never forcing his influence on a woman. They went to him willingly. It was almost laughable how despite everything, he had moments like this where he was so childish. But he brought up a good point, he did need to throw both his Hyoten and Futon Rasengan variants. The damage was too great to his body to continue using them up close in person. If they could purify her chakra, in a sense at least, then it would be more akin to regenerating the damaged cells instead of forcing them to divide and repair, thus shaving off days of his life per injury per attack. She estimated he would still live several years past 100, being an Uzumaki and having her inside of him. Kyuubi sighed as she closed her eyes and ignored the blonde spouting random ideas, only to shoot them down himself. She turned and walked around her cage a little bit, trying to make sure everything went well with healing the concussion. Why did the blonde have to shake his head? Kyuubi withdrew away from the blonde to work on the concussion, keeping her eyes closed as it required a bit of concentration. She paused as she connected to the blonde's senses. She could smell the scent of that actress, Koyuki, and the woman was highly aroused. Good at hiding it, if Kyuubi's smell was right, but highly aroused. Koyuki leaned down and kissed the blonde on the cheek, just as a picture flashed. She smiled a bit, and heard how it would make a good souvenir from her director, and it would make for good blackmail material. He and the photographer headed out of the room, leaving Koyuki alone with the blonde. She slumped into a chair and sighed heavily before looking at the concussed blonde. She shook her head a bit, a slight smile on her face as she thought about all that he did. She scooted a little closer and gently brushed his blonde hair away from his bandaged face. A kiss and a picture isn't a proper thank you, she whispered, even if the blonde wouldn't hear her. Then there were the improper thoughts she had been having since she was rescued 2 days ago. Her dreams were filled with such erotic thoughts. She thought she perhaps needed a bit of thrill to her usual life, so she signed up to be the main leading female for the Ika Ika movie coming out. But not 5 feet away from the blonde, she could feel her thoughts turn even more improper. She bit her lip, hoping for a distraction, but none came. She reached under the hospital blanket and ran her hand under the pants the blonde wore. Koyuki licked her lips as she felt the boy's impressive girth and length. Definitely not a boy here, she whispered in a huskier tone. Naruto felt himself waken, and the blanket had shifted that was over him. Kyuubi had told him to enjoy something, and he had glanced at her for a moment when he didn't know what she was talking about. He woke up to having Koyuki's hand in his pants, and he could hear her breathing getting shallower. His concussion was also non-existent. Whether Kyuubi accelerated the healing or just made it so he couldn't feel it, he had no idea. Koyuki moved the blanket out of the way just enough for her to see what she was playing with. Her breathing got heavier as she saw it was in fact all real. Her left hand began to pump him up and down while her right slid into her kimono, under the bra and teasing her nipple with her palm. She drew her hand back a moment, seeing him hanging out and proud, wet with a bit of smear and pre-cum. She needed something to lubricate with. She bit her lip and began to search the cabinets for something, and soon she found something. She doubted it was the original purpose of the gel, but it was a medical lubricant. She smeared some of the gel on her hands and rubbed them together, warming up the gel. If the gel was cold, then the blonde might wake up, and that was something she didn't want to happen. She went back and sat down and used the gel on her hand to start pumping Naruto's. Naruto bit the tip of his tongue, trying to stay quiet. Kami, it was incredible feeling the princess's hand work up and down on his. He just barely opened one eye, and noticed she was working her hand at her in the kimono while she pumped him. Who would have thought the princess, excuse him daimyo, would be getting off on something like this? Naruto let out a soft sound, feeling his shaft thicken and his balls tighten. Her hand worked over him even faster, the lube making the sensation phenomenal. He thanked his lucky stars because he seriously doubted he would experience such pleasure any other way except for being thrown into this game. Koyuki felt her hand begin to thicken and pulse. She licked her lip and tightened her grip and slowed her hand, pumping firmer. She could practically feel the orgasm coming up. She looked at the sleeping blonde, not even noticing his eyes were partially opened, enough for a trained shinobi to see. "That's it, Naruto-kun, come for me," she whispered in a huskier tone. She saw his balls twitch as her hand neared the base and she felt the surge go through his length. She watched as the hot seed shot from the tip, getting a bit of air before coming down over her hand. The other surges weren't as powerful, but they did run down all over her hand and Naruto's. Koyuki looked at the white liquid and leaned her head down. She lapped at it with a moist and pink tongue, her eyes savoring the taste as she swept it off the head of his. She removed her hand from the base of the thick and rubbed her face against the shaft, enjoying the feel of the cum getting smeared against her face. "You know, Koyuki, you could have just asked first," Naruto said and opened both eyes and sat up to look at Koyuki, who was wide-eyed. "I wouldn't have complained, I would have been flattered and let you do what you'd like." "How long have you been awake for?" Koyuki asked slightly accusingly. Naruto gave a slight grin. "Long enough," he said somewhat cryptically. "Besides, I thought you'd be happy. Now we can do a whole lot more." Koyuki's eyes widened for a moment before she arched one eyebrow. "And what makes you think I want to do more?" she asked. Naruto wasn't quite sure himself, but he tapped his nose. "The nose," he said simply. It was like he could smell Koyuki's arousal. Koyuki looked down to the length of arousal in her hand still. She could feel his cum drying against her cheek, and she sighed softly. She engulfed the tip in her mouth, moaning at the taste of the cum and sliding her head down further. Naruto let out a loud moan of pleasure as he let Koyuki work her mouth up and down over about half his length while her hand kept pumping at his. He watched her thighs shift, no doubt trying to bring herself some amount of pleasure that she was withholding from herself by not stripping and straddling him. Naruto had no problem going at her pace, however. Koyuki closed her eyes as she imagined she was inside of her. Her tongue flicked over each thick part of it, making her moan even more. She rubbed her tongue down one of the veins, and she felt the blonde shudder. She slid her hand lower and cupped the balls that Naruto had to go with his. Koyuki pulled back and swirled her tongue around the crown of his as she fondled his balls at the same time. It was so big and thick, the blonde was also lasting plenty of time. No doubt she would orgasm before he did. She went back to pumping her hand up and down. Naruto reached down and ran his hand through Koyuki's hair. Who would have thought that a daimyo would take him off? Then again, he has had to cage him off too. He wondered if he should start keeping it in his pants a little more. Naruto let out a loud moan of pleasure as he felt Koyuki go all the way down to where her fist was, taking the tip into her throat for a moment. Naruto felt her throat spasm and she made a few soft sounds. The blonde gripped the bed and grit his teeth, forcing himself not to buck his hips upwards. It was a struggle, but soon Koyuki drew back enough that the sensation passed. Koyuki gave a slight smirk as she felt a small sense of power rush through her. The blonde was quite responsive to her touch and she was barely doing anything. She was going to enjoy this thoroughly. She pressed her tongue against the bottom of the blonde's and slowly dragged her tongue up along it to the crown where she circled her tongue around the flesh. She slowly began to bob her head on and off, her cheeks hollowing as she was on the rod. Koyuki then slowly moved off her savior and then moved to kneel between his legs. She put her hands on his thighs and lowered her head to the thick. She licked her lips, slowly, watching Naruto's eyes as she slowly began to sink her head down onto the. It was going to be a struggle, one she desperately wanted to fight. Naruto watched as Koyuki began to deep-throat him, slowly pushing her head further down along the shaft. Naruto forced a spasm down as he felt Koyuki's throat gag around him as she forced herself to take him deeper. But her eyes never left his eyes, making it that much more impressive, even as they began to water. Koyuki touched the base of his with her lips, her chin touching his full balls. She could feel the slight twitches and trembles in the. She slowly drew back, coughing a bit as her airway was flooded with air. Kami, it felt wonderful to do that. She continued to, even though she felt a sense of pride swelling in her chest. Something else was swelling inside of her though. Naruto gave a twitch and the blonde gave a loud moan of pleasure. Koyuki's eyes widened as she felt the first shot of cum in her mouth and throat. She began the uphill struggle of swallowing all of the cum that was flooding out. She didn't want to miss a single drop, she wanted all of it. Naruto panted a bit as he came down from his orgasm. He watched as Koyuki slowly pulled off of him, slurping at it the entire way. She pulled off the tip with a small pop sound and Naruto watched her. Koyuki looked at the still hard blonde and stroked it softly. She soon sat higher on her knees and quickly untied the kimono she wore and tossed it to the side. Her bra went next and she moved to straddle the blonde. She was pleasantly surprised when he sat up and grabbed at her and began to put on her nipples. She wasn't much more than a handful, but the blonde didn't care and it made her back arch and she moaned in pleasure. Naruto didn't mind that she wasn't as busty as some of the other women he had with. After all, he wasn't picky and with a woman was with a woman. Besides, if Naruto wanted to be big, he could go to Ikibi, Tsunade, Mikoto, Tsume, or Hana, just to name a few. Naruto pulled back from the pink nipple he was on and raised Koyuki up to a better position. She showed a bit of flexibility as she worked off her panties and tossed them to the side. Naruto slid one hand between Koyuki's legs and got her to moan out loudly as he began to rub her. Naruto bit at her neck some, getting her to tilt her neck to the side for some more. Her legs wrapped around his waist as he slid one hand down her spine. He moved his hands to her and lifted her up. Koyuki's breath caught in her throat as she felt the tip of Naruto's press into her wet slit. She was excited, oh so excited. She moaned loudly, throwing her head back as the blonde sank inside of her, filling her in a way few men had. Her nails gripped at his back, digging in. Had it not been for the thick coat of his jumpsuit, she would no doubt be bleeding him. Koyuki's breath came out in short gasps as the blonde began to pump in and out of her. Oh, she moaned, unable to really speak. The blonde was pushing deep and filling her so well, and he was brushing against every spot she needed to have touched. She writhed on top of him, her hips bucking a bit. The first thing that Naruto realized was that Koyuki was tight, the second was that she clung to him rather tightly. Naruto moved his mouth away from Koyuki's neck and looked into her eyes. His eyes stayed on hers almost unblinkingly as he thrust in and out of her, using short but powerful jerking thrusts. He gave his own groan as Koyuki squeezed her inner muscles around him and her hands raked down his back, despite his jacket on. Naruto began to work steadily in and out of her, getting her breath to catch one more. This time, when it did, Naruto bit at her neck making her release a shaky breath as she shuddered around him. Koyuki shook her head, her black hair lashing around them as Naruto kept her. "Oh Kami," she finally managed out and began to moan loudly and lewdly. It was oh so pleasurable, especially when Naruto brushed her G-spot, causing her to writhe even more. Her hands went to the blonde's head and forced his head into her chest while her legs wrapped tightly around his waist, her ankles interlocking. Spurred on by her declaration, Naruto began to pump in and out of Koyuki quickly with hard and firm thrusts. Naruto allowed his head to be lowered to her and he bit at the flesh, using his teeth on them to work her up. She shook in his hands, but he kept a firm hold on her as he rolled his hips upwards into her body. Naruto felt her hips jerk and moved his mouth from her towards her nipple and began to quickly move on it. While he was on it, he applied pressure with his teeth, getting Koyuki to jerk a bit in his grasp some more. He moved one hand away from her and quickly smacked it, eliciting a sound of pleasure from Koyuki in the way of a higher-pitched moan. Koyuki was shocked at Naruto spanking her. It felt amazing. She began to roll her hips against him, trying to take a bit of control and get herself more. Slowly, she felt her body tightening. It was exactly what she needed. This whole movie mission was one hell of a ride, stress after stress on her system. She needed something simple. Koyuki fell on her back, her legs up in the air now as Naruto had forced her onto her back. She was breathing heavier as he steadily put her into the bed. She clutched at the blonde's back, feeling him pound into her with his hard rod. She felt his hot mouth on her, and she couldn't help but cry out more in pleasure. Oh Kami, yes, yes, she could barely think, but that's what she wanted. Koyuki felt her orgasm building. The pressure inside felt like it was about to snap at any second. She was panting heavily, her chest rose and fell. This was what she wanted, what she needed. Her legs pressed tighter around Naruto's waist and her nails clutched at his back a bit more. With a sharp shrill moan of pleasure, she came hard. Her entire body bucked as she had an intense orgasm from the blonde. Subconsciously, she felt the blonde flooding her body with hot cum she had tasted earlier. It was impressive he could go that many times with barely any rest. Then again, he had done the completely illogical thing of outrunning a train of all things, so maybe it wasn't that impressive. Naruto felt Koyuki jerk under him as if he had been her. His own orgasm had boiled over as she came loudly. He was glad that he had placed a silencing seal much earlier while she had been jerking him off. He felt his warm cum fill around his sand, knew she was absolutely full of his cum. He slowly slid out of her and panted a bit, sitting up on his knees and watching as Koyuki basked in the afterglow for a moment. Wow, Koyuki said, panting as she lay on the bed, unable to feel her legs at the moment. She looked up at the blonde who had just put her into a sense of orgasmic oblivion. You know, I'm going to need more of that when I have the time, she said. Naruto chuckled a little bit and nodded. Not a problem, he said as he slid off the bed a moment and searched for his gear. He grabbed the pouch of ninja gear he had and pulled from it a Hiraishin kunai. Naruto then went over to Koyuki and held it out by the blade. Take this, when you need me, throw it to call me. I'll be able to come within 10 feet of the blade, he told her and watched as Koyuki accepted the knife and tucked it into a spot within her kimono. Impractical, but I suppose it will work, Koyuki said as she stood up to get dressed. Her legs felt like jelly, but she couldn't deny that she loved every moment of the hard pounding she got from the blonde. Naruto shrugged a bit. I haven't gotten around to creating something more effective. He supposed he should, so he would have a bit more forewarning before someone like Koyuki summoned him. He doubted she would be the last person Naruto had to give a Hiraishin kunai to. Koyuki made sure she looked like a prim and proper daimyo before she moved to the door. I want you to get some rest, Naruto-kun, she told him, looking over her shoulder at him. Even though you heal fast, I want you to rest. Naruto offered a slight salute and got back in the bed, making a show of settling back into his spot. Koyuki rolled her eyes, but she supposed that's what she got. She then walked out of the room, letting the blonde rest. Naruto waited until Koyuki had left before he grabbed his pouch again and pulled his book from it. He sat back down and flipped it open to the level up page. He paused as he saw something new. Updates available. Upload. It had two simple answers, yes and no. Figuring what the hell, Naruto selected yes. From seemingly nowhere a blue book appeared and slammed into the book Naruto was holding. Both fused together into one, and soon Naruto was holding one slightly heavier book that was closed. He flipped open the first page, wondering if whoever made the book had some words for him. Congratulations, Naruto. You have successfully merged the new content with the old content without any problems. This is a little something I've been working on, adding additional stuff to the original game system. No doubt you notice the new cover. Naruto looked at the cover, which had one black bat-like wing and another white feathered wing on it. He went back to the book. Those have to deal with two additional perks that are added that are somewhat special. More stats including demonic chakra, reflexes, and even something I decided to throw in, divine chakra. There are more skills too, but you have plenty of those already. Another thing, I have standardized the amount of experience you get for having with each woman instead of having it decrease the more times you have with the woman. As you get higher in the levels, you've no doubt noticed you level up a lot less. Despite this, there are a few civilian women who you will be having with that you can't afford to keep having the amount of experience drop. Naruto was thankful for that and soon began to look through the book. It felt heavier, more potent. He noticed he still had everything right where it was at. His stats had an additional 5 demonic chakra levels, which was already at a whopping 35 points right off the bat, demonic chakra control, which was at an absolutely shitty 5, divine chakra levels were at 10, and control for it was at 10 as well. He supposed that having a Biju in his gut since he was born would give credence to the levels of demonic chakra. His last new stat was reflexes. He knew reflexes were good to have, and his reflexes weren't that bad. He had reflexes at about 25 already. He then flipped through the book towards the perks. There he saw a few and debated a second. He tapped one he already had, the Rinnegan. He was surprised when a visual representation appeared over the book like some sort of genjutsu that let him see it. It showed him using each of the Rinnegan abilities, taking the soul of someone, Shinra Tensei and Bansho Tenin, etc. It was kind of cool, he could now see what he was taking. Naruto scrolled through the perks, noticing a few that interested him a bit. Finally he found something that looked new. One of the requirements was demonic chakra. Demon form. He asked and furrowed his brows a little bit. That didn't sound good. He tapped on it and from the book it first showed the requirements. Demon form. Requirements. Demonic chakra levels 100, demonic chakra control 50, strength 75, speed 50, reflexes 50, have with any 3 Biju, fire elemental manipulation 150, earth elemental manipulation 125, water elemental manipulation 125, molten perk. Harness the power of the demonic chakra within, and take a form of absolute destruction. Naruto looked at the image. If he had to say something, he didn't look like a demon, not much of one anyways. His hair was a silvery blonde, and he had 2 fox ears on the top of his head. A silvery fox tail was swaying behind him. Hell, the only way he still knew it was him was the fact he had the 3 whisker marks and the blue eyes. He noticed small writing under the image. Alternate appearance. Naruto shrugged and selected, yes. The image was distorted before it returned and now Naruto was taken back. He wore black samurai armor of black with red tints running through it. Along the gauntlets was black fire, and he had horns coming from under the helmet. A pair of black wings, dripping in a red fluid, was also on his back. He also held a sword that was most certainly not seen on any samurai. The thing was as big as he was. Naruto felt a jolt and was yanked into his mindscape. He was surprised to see Kyuubi, holding him up off his feet, as close to the cage as she could get with him, just as close. Let me make one thing absolutely clear, Naruto, Kyuubi stated in a dangerous tone, her thighs shifting just slightly under the kimono she wore. You will get that perk. You will get that perk, and I don't care if you have to go to the Ikibi constantly for a week straight. I do not know who the creator of this game is, but to know what a demon knight is, that is something impressive in itself. If you do not get this perk in a timely manner, I will turn you into a female, the painful way. Kyuubi said, shuddering just a little. Naruto shuddered himself as Kyuubi dropped him to his feet. He looked up to the woman, trying to figure this out. And why are you so riled up for me to do this? Kyuubi shuddered again as she pulled her hand back and brushed it over her plump lips parting ever so slightly. The demon knight is an embodiment of strength, dominance, and power. She shuddered as she spoke the last word. I have only had the privilege of being taken by one once. In one night filled with, it was the only time I went from the strongest of the Biju to a writhing, moaning, lewd whore, and it was worth every second. Kyuubi squeezed her slightly. The fact your appearance resembles Yoko Kurama, a famous demon fox, is even more appealing. Naruto thought about what Kyuubi was saying and nodded before letting his subconscious go back to the outside world. He scrolled away from the demonic form and soon found divine form. After seeing the demonic, he was curious. He tapped it to check the requirements. Divine form. Requirements. Divine chakra levels 100, divine chakra control 50, strength 50, speed 75, reflexes 50, have with 5 virgins, wind elemental manipulation 150, lightning elemental manipulation 125, water elemental manipulation 125, Rinnegan perk. Harness the power of divine chakra and unleash a holy warrior with unsurpassed abilities in healing. Naruto looked at the appearance he would take. 2 white wings made of chakra, his eyes glowed the usual blue but had the rings of the Rinnegan. He wore a heavier set of armor than the demonic form and it was silver with accents of gold. He had a bow strapped to his back that sparked with electricity and a set of dual swords strapped to his hip. Naruto scratched his chin a little bit. Well, hell, I won't be getting either one of these for a while, he said thinking. Naruto went ahead and flipped over to the level up page. Congratulations. You had with Koyuki Kazuhana plus 400 PTS, plus 20 politics, plus 20 acting. Congratulations. You had with 3 civilians plus 500 PTS. Congratulations. You had with 2 important political figures plus 750 PTS, plus 20 politics. Naruto banked the level up he got from that one, it seemed everything stayed the same. Congratulations. You got the bronze danger close inverted medal plus 500 PTS. Naruto raised his eyebrow at that medal. What did he do to get that? Additional bonuses, with Aikibi no Tanuki plus 15 demonic chakra levels, plus 15 demonic chakra control. Deflowered Karin, plus 5 divine chakra levels, plus 5 divine chakra control. Deflowered Temari no Sabaku, plus 5 divine chakra levels, plus 5 divine chakra control. Deflowered Shizune, plus 10 divine chakra levels, plus 10 divine chakra control. Bronze Deflower Medal, plus 5 divine chakra levels, plus 5 divine chakra control. Naruto blinked as he got all of that. That's impressive, he said. Maybe it wouldn't take him so long to get both of the forms. He was already at 35 with divine chakra levels. But he also hadn't had that many virgins. Naruto moved over to the medals. He tapped on Danger Close advertisement. Advert the danger of the Danger Close medal, it was rather simple. He got Danger Close for Shizune, and he got Danger Close advert for Tsunade. Perhaps with the new content, it came with new medals also. Naruto moved to the stats page. He was in a bit of a bind now, 5 new stats, and he only got 5 stat points per level, plus an additional 2 or 3 per level, depending on the level. Right now he has 7 stat points. Naruto hung his head a little bit. Naruto got out a pen and a sheet of paper and started to write out the perks he wanted and the level of stats required per perk. He then condensed it down to a simpler list, and soon calculated how much he had and how much he needed. From there, he figured up he needed over 300 stat points for the 4 perks he wanted to get. He then figured up how many points he got per 10 levels and hung his head a bit more. He would have to double the number of levels he had at the very least to get the number of stat points he needed. His only hope would be to keep having and hoping each medal and each person would boost his stats also. Naruto looked at everything and rubbed his face a little bit. He decided to increase his intelligence by 5 points. This game was getting more and more complex. He thought back to a simpler time, when he had Mikoto and had gained a ton of levels. He went over to the skills page and looked over what he had. Naruto needed 150 in each wind and fire elemental manipulation. Naruto was already at 126 in wind and 100 in fire. He dumped the 24 points needed in wind, getting to 150. He dumped 50 into fire, bringing it up to 150 as well. Naruto then put 10 points into the ninja master skill, bringing that up to 110. Naruto leaned his head back against his pillow and sighed. He wanted to go home to Konoha soon. A few days passed, and Naruto was once more back in Konoha. He had gotten paid for the A-ranked mission, they had dealt with several high-ranking shinobi while protecting a priority target, and he was hanging out with Hana. He learned several things while hanging out with the Inuzuka heiress. One was that she preferred steak to flowers, and second, she knew instantly he had been injured on his mission and demanded an explanation. It was why he tried flowers first, but soon found out she preferred the steak. Tsunade had been adamant about him not using his Hyoten Rasengan variant ever again until he could minimize the damage. Naruto also felt like he was being watched. He couldn't tell if it was malicious or not, but Hana didn't seem to be picking up on it either, so he pushed it down to the bottom of his list of problems. Naruto's eyes were drawn to Hana's as she bent over in the store, examining something on a lower shelf. Yeah, he had tapped that. Kurenai watched from across the street on a rooftop, using a genjutsu to keep her and Anko covered and out of sight. She was watching the blonde, a hint of anger on her face as she tapped her foot and crossed her arms under her bust. She didn't approve of Naruto for Hinata. Every motherly instinct she had was flaring to life and it screamed at her to take action. To her, it seemed like Hinata was being played. The other girls and women in Naruto's life were of no concern to Kurenai. She didn't like the notion of them all being treated like some sort of collectible for Naruto, but it wasn't her business. Her business was her student, who was like a daughter to her. Hinata, in Kurenai's mind, didn't really know any better to watch for such things to happen. Kurenai had brought Anko with just so her friend could be there in case something happened. Kurenai didn't need any sort of problem occurring and being stranded to her own devices. Kurenai wasn't stupid either. She knew that Anko and Hana had both been in Naruto's bed, figuratively speaking at least. The blonde Jinchuriki had that raw magnetism, she could feel it in some of her recent dreams, since he got back with Tsunade, had been of the blonde. When Naruto and Hana left the store, Kurenai's hands flew through a short series of hand seals. The blonde was terrible at genjutsu, anyone with his chakra levels would be. She wouldn't do any permanent damage, just enough to get him to either pursue Hinata only or to leave Hinata away from his devices. Naruto felt a genjutsu snagged a hold of him. He sighed softly and his eyes mutated into the Sharingan, seeing through it instantly. He even traced the chakra back to the source of the genjutsu, up to Kurenai. He looked into her red eyes as his Sharingan turned into the Mangekyo Sharingan. He intoned one word, Tsukuyomi. He said softly. For about a second, he maintained eye contact, even from about 30 feet away. Finally, he turned and walked along with Hana as his eyes turned back to blue. Anko moved quickly as Kurenai began to fall. She caught her friend and noticed the slight glazed look in Kurenai's red eyes. She shook her head slightly before hefting Kurenai onto her shoulders. Blondie got good, Kurenai-chan, hope you realize that now, she said as she headed to Kurenai's apartment. Inside the Tsukuyomi, Kurenai looked around as she was strung up on a cross, her body on full display. Kakashi had mentioned this particular genjutsu, but had never said anything about it having someone. She cursed as she realized the blonde was within his rights to punish her how he saw fit. She had technically attacked him. Naruto seemingly materialized out of nowhere, his eyes piercing into Kurenai's. I am Kami in this jutsu. For the next 72 hours, you will be punished. Your punishment will fit the crime, Kurenai-san. Naruto snapped his fingers and surrounding Kurenai were countless blondes, each looking over her bound body. This is rape, Tsunade-sama won't condone this. Kurenai said, trying to get out of the situation she was in. She'd rather be tortured. And Tsunade would rather you mentally rape my mind because I'm a ally active young man that actually cares about the women in his life. Naruto countered right back. Besides, I've used the Rinnegan to see your desires. Quite the dirty mind you have, Kurenai-san. Kurenai blushed, though it went unnoticed in the black and white world. She yelped a bit as she felt a hand grab at her. The cross dissolved and her hands were bound behind her back. One of the Naruto copies stood behind her, holding her up almost effortlessly, a feat that was impressive in Kurenai's mind. Her legs were spread rather lewdly, and she looked away. I do not enjoy what I am about to do to you, Kurenai-san. Had I let you go through with your genjutsu without retaliation, Someone somewhere would try to use that on me, and quite possibly one of those precious to me. I cannot allow this, so I will make an example out of you. But because I do not enjoy this, I will offer you a deal. If you can hold out for the first 2 hours, I will release the jutsu prematurely and we will both walk our separate ways. Naruto said simply, and noticed Kurenai stole her resolve. Kurenai licked her lips a bit as the first copy stepped forward, in hand. The blonde was quite big. He couldn't be that big already in real life, could he? She shuddered as she felt it rub against her entrance and she felt her body slickening to the touch. Damn, her body was turning traitor against her resolve. Kurenai's back arched into the copy holding her as the other Naruto sheathed himself inside of her. Her red eyes opened wide and her mouth was open in a small silent scream. She could barely think. She knew she was naturally tighter and smaller than the average woman. It created a pleasurable experience for men. For Naruto, who was naturally thicker and bigger, even if it was just a jutsu, it felt like she was being split in half. The pain was nothing she couldn't deal with. In fact, she liked a little pain in her. But the pleasure of the blonde stretching her, it was better than she thought it would be, and it lit her nerves on fire with pleasure. Naruto began to pump in and out of Kurenai's. He didn't hold back, knowing it wasn't her actual body and that she could take it in this world. She writhed in his arms, but he held her firm while he heard her even. He had to admit on some levels, it was oddly therapeutic to be her so hard. She was tight, and he grit his teeth as she gave a few spasms around him. He grabbed Kurenai's large and squeezed them, making her moan out lewdly. He bucked against her rougher. Despite her writhing and moving in his arms, he held fast to her. Kurenai felt her orgasm already building, the coil tightening just a little bit with each and every hard thrust by the blonde. The wet smacking sound of the blonde's hips against her own was heard and seemed to echo a bit. Her breathing was getting heavier and her mind was slowly going into a haze. Kurenai tried to stay focused, but the red-eyed beauty was slowly losing herself. She knew better than anyone what a good genjutsu could do to the mind, and Naruto used one of the best. Kurenai's back arched and she was staring at the copy that held her from behind as she screamed and had her first orgasm. As she blacked out from the pure pleasure of it, she could feel her tightness getting rammed full of cum and it only caused her orgasm to get stronger. Kurenai awoke sometime later, bound once more, and she looked up to the original, the only Naruto that had spoken. How long had she been out for? 71 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds to go. Naruto said, crossing his arms as he looked down to the bound form of Kurenai to see she started to understand just how hopeless she was in the jutsu. Impressively, Kurenai lasted for quite a long time in the genjutsu. It put considerable strain on Naruto, even with his massive reserves to pull off the sheer complexity of the genjutsu. Add into the time alteration, and him even casting it was impressive. Kurenai made it to about 71 hours and 10 minutes before her mind entered somewhat of a safety state. All shinobi were trained to resist torture, some were better at it than others, especially given the type of torture. In the case of physical torture for information, it wasn't uncommon to find a shinobi that would begin to recite their name, rank, and shinobi registration number over and over. It was a mental shield, making the shinobi focus solely on those 3 items of information. In the case of UAL torture, if it became too much, shinobi were trained to let their inhibitions go wild. By stating the dual desires of the torturer, the tortured would either be given a swifter death, which sometimes could be preferable to a loose tongue, or the tortured would be given a break where they could regain their bearing and attempt an escape. Kurenai squatted in front of the only speaking Naruto, her mouth bobbing on and off of his. She was messy in her, making lewd slurping noises as she did so. Her hair was pulled to 2 different copies, each having the silky tresses wrapped around their thick shafts and pumping. Kurenai would pump for them, but her fingers were busy elsewhere. One hand was pressing 2 fingers into her. Naruto put a hand on Kurenai's head despite the amount of cum in her hair and on her face. He pulled her off of Hi sand, made her look up at him. Her red eyes were glazed over slightly, and she was panting, a slight smile of content on her face as she licked at her lips. He really hoped he didn't completely break her. Kurenai's breathing began to hitch as she fingered herself faster and she licked out at the tip of the blondes, her tongue rubbing against the tip. She could tell he was close, she could tell all three were close and she was hungry for more. She moaned lewdly as Naruto stuffed his into her throat, forcing her to deep throat and gag, something she did all too eagerly. Naruto grunted as he came in Kurenai's throat, her muscles milking him for more. He watched as his copies, created by his will in the Tsukuyomi, shot their own loads all over Kurenai's face and shoulders. She blacked out again as she had her orgasm, brought on by fingering her abuse and rubbing her hypersensitivity. When she came back, bound once more, Naruto said how much time was left. 67 hours, 43 minutes and 12 seconds remain. Kurenai lost track of how much cum she had swallowed, how much she took in her and she was currently bouncing on one copy and rocking back against another, using both hand. Her mouth was full as she tried on twos at the same time. There was no way in hell they would both fit in her mouth, but what she could she serviced as best as possible. Her hands were occupied with more, and she bounced and jiggled making cum fly off some. Her hair was being used again by a few copies. The two copies getting off, took turns swatting at Kurenai's cheeks making them red and getting her to moan out in a lewd manner, or slapping her, once again making her moan loudly around there. Kurenai moaned loudly and pulled off of the twos she was on. She took the copy's hands from her hips, and placed them on her, moaning out. Yes, she said softly before her head was turned and her mouth filled with once more. Kurenai moaned loudly, digging her fingers into her own, forcing the hands she held to squeeze her. She could feel her body about ready to orgasm again. She clenched her inner muscles down on the blondes firmly, rocking back and forth a bit, moaning loudly. Her entire body stiffened and her head threw back as she had a hard screaming orgasm, digging her fingers into her tight until she collapsed forward, blacking out once more. When she woke, she listened to how much time was left, and thought of all the glorious possibilities that she and the blonde could have. 40 hours and 10 minutes remain. Naruto said. Outside the Tsukuyomi, Anko paced in front of the immobile form of Kurenai who was lying on Anko's couch. From what I gathered from Kakashi, this thing shouldn't last this long. Anko said softly as she bit her thumb and watched her friend. She was somewhat responsible for this. She had egged Kurenai on with a bit of girl talk about the blonde and how good he had been in bed. Of course, Anko hadn't known until it was nearly too late about the blonde's date with Kurenai's student, the one Kurenai felt a motherly attachment to. Feeling somewhat responsible for the impending problems of the blonde, Anko had tipped him off early and told him to expect Kurenai's retaliation for seemingly leading Hinata on. Anko even went and told Tsunade, who had admitted it might be good for Kurenai to be humbled. The problem was that Anko had never experienced this genjutsu that Kurenai was in, and the only two that had been under its influence weren't really willing to talk about it. Anko stopped her fidgeting when Kurenai stirred and managed to sit up. Her friend held her head, like it was pounding, and Anko got her some water and some aspirin. Here, she told Kurenai. That should help with the pounding. Kurenai groaned a bit, not wanting to think about the pounding she was dealing with. It was hard to say which one she was dealing with. You tipped him off, Kurenai said. Guilty. Anko looked down and kicked the floor. You were getting to be a bit prissy about this Nai-chan, that Hinata really wants to be with the Gaki. Hell, they had a good date shortly before Blondie headed out to snow. Kurenai rubbed her temples. I know, she admitted. I still don't appreciate the method he used against me, but I won't fault him when I'm just as at fault. She leaned her head back. His control over it is as impressive as Itachi's. Kakashi told me how each time he died in the Tsukuyomi and was subsequently brought back, it had only been a second. The genjutsu lasts for 3 days. Kurenai rubbed her face a bit and drank some of the cool water and popped the aspirin. I broke in under an hour of the genjutsu. She whispered softly. To be fair, every second felt like an hour. To her it felt like 125 days. She had endured about 4 months of torture before breaking. She had seen better jonin break in less time. How come you're not bedridden like Kakashi or the Uchiha Gaki? Anko asked, folding her arms under her. shifting her weight onto one leg. Because when we hit the 10-hour mark, he stopped and we sat down and had a conversation like normal people. Essentially he eased my mind from under extreme stress to ease. I still have a pounding headache from the information overload, but it's nothing, some sleep, some water, and the aspirin won't fix it. Kurenai said, shaking her head then wincing a bit. It was an up thing for you to do, Anko, but given that we've done worse to one another, I think I'll forgive it, this time. Kurenai said and groaned a bit. So long as I get to sleep in your bed and get a hot shower when I wake. Sure Nai-chan, go get some sleep. You sound like shit. Anko said simply and watched Kurenai shakily head to the bedroom for some rest. Anko briefly wondered how long she would last in the genjutsu. With Naruto. Naruto had enjoyed the rest of the time he had with Hana, but eventually that had ended and he went home. He was lying down on his bed, nursing his own headache. It had been a pain to do that, and he doubted he was going to do it to just anyone. Naruto grabbed the game book. He wanted to see if he got anything for that headache. He opened it to the level up page and blinked a bit. Congratulations. You had with Kurenai Uehi plus 1300 PTS, 30 genjutsu. Congratulations. You had with 5 Jonin ranked shinobi plus 1500 PTS, 10 ninjutsu, 10 genjutsu, 10 taijutsu. Congratulations. You had illusionary with a genjutsu specialist plus 500 PTS, 10 genjutsu. Congratulations. You received the silver leaf man medal plus 1400 PTS. Congratulations. You received the bronze ninja medal plus 350 PTS. Naruto raised an eyebrow and banked the level up. With that, he flipped over to the medals. He tapped Leaf Man, which was right under Leaf Hunter. Leaf Man, silver. 8 women from Konoha. Naruto nodded softly and tapped on the ninja medal. Ninja, bronze. Using ninja techniques 3 times during. Naruto looked up in thought. There had been the shadow clone jutsu, the chakra chains with kin, there was now the Tsukuyomi. Yeah, he hit the total for that. Naruto went to his stats, since he still needed a ridiculous amount of speed and he wasn't getting it fast enough, he poured 10 points into his speed. It was at 80, but given one of the perks he wanted required 150 speed, he figured it wouldn't hurt to keep bumping it up for a while. He still needed to double his levels or find women that would give him the stats he needed. Still, that led him to the skills page. Bonuses. Naruto watched the points flutter down and bobbed his leg up and down on the bed, thinking for a moment. He had 87 points to use and he was close to completely leveling up quite a few things. Naruto decided to not take anything to chance. He poured 50 into his sealing abilities, bringing it up to master level and maxed out. The game gave him 2 options once more. Seal Slinger or Seal Decipherer. Naruto tapped the Seal Slinger. Seals cost little to no chakra for you to make and you're able to make even the most complex of seals, even under extreme pressure. Not bad, but Naruto was curious as to the other one and tapped it. You are able to decipher even the most complex of seals, the knowledge written in each brush stroke unraveling to your touch. No seal is impossible for you to unlock. Naruto paused as he saw that. There were 9 Jinchuriki, plain and simple, and he knew it. The Biju were too valuable as weapons, even if he didn't see them as that. It was only by shrewd work did he keep the Ikibi hidden away as a Biju. As far as anyone knew, she was just an exotic beautiful woman who had moved to Konoha shortly before the invasion, her paperwork destroyed by the invasion. It was a possible idea, and most people bought it. Only he and Gaara knew the truth really. Gaara's seal had been stupidly easy to decipher for one very simple reason. First and foremost, it was built faulty. Second, it had never been given any maintenance. It had been child's play to unlock the seal for someone of his abilities. That did not mean the other seals holding back the Biju would be easy to decipher and unlock. It could take him days, even weeks to get the proper sequence right, time that he didn't really have that much of that he could spend on each individual Jinchuriki. He selected the Seal Decipherer to cap off his sealing abilities. Naruto then poured 35 points into Kenjutsu, bringing it up to 185. He wanted to finish off each and every one of his current skills before working on more. Naruto leaned his head back and looked up, thinking some on what the future might bring. Naruto raced through the trees, a frown set on his face as he chased behind the albino teen from Oto. He could still remember Tayuya's words of warning before he set out. Kimimaro was fanatically devoted to Orochimaru, and he would do anything for the snake Sannin. Kimimaro was also ridiculously strong and quite the capable warrior. The redhead had told him that Kimimaro had destroyed all 4 of Orochimaru's bodyguards in a fight at once, and Tayuya still had the scars to prove it. Naruto didn't want to fight someone like that in an enclosed space, so he wasn't racing ahead of Kimimaro. He knew he was faster than the albino bone wielder. Finally, Kimimaro came to a clearing and Naruto put on a burst of speed. He had both boots of the outfit Mikoto gave him on top of the barrel. He forced it down to the ground by pushing with his legs, making the barrel that Sasuke was in slam into the ground. Naruto landed in front of Kimimaro, eyes set on the passive face of the bone wielder. I can't let you take Sasuke-tem to Orochimaru. His mother would be distraught. Naruto said, standing to his full height, dressed in the black Anbu uniform with his mother's sword at his side and the kusanagi at his back. He was decked out with several scrolls and equipment pouches. He would need every advantage in this fight, he was sure. Kimimaro regarded the blonde annoyance in front of him. It would seem I will have to deal with you. Orochimaru-sama has already had to swap bodies, and I am tasked with taking Sasuke-sama to Orochimaru-sama. Kimimaro kept his face completely blank. He was surprised at the other members who were dispatched to find Sasuke, all of them having failed to kill the group of brats. Kimimaro slashed his hands through the air, and fired the bones of his fingertips out with pinpoint accuracy and amazing speed. He then followed the attack by charging at the blonde. His fingertips bled from firing off the bones of his fingers like that. Naruto dodged to the side of the white projectiles, drawing his mother's sword from his hip as he blocked against Kimimaro's attack, a spin kick that would have caught Naruto in the head. Naruto spun to the side, and swiped at the older teen with his sword, enhancing the edge with wind chakra. He caused the sword to dig deep into Kimimaro's arm, bleeding the older teen. Kimimaro looked down at his wounded arm. He could practically feel his bone fusing back together from the rather successful cut. Wind chakra seemed to be rather powerful, or perhaps it was just the blonde he was facing. He glanced at the barrel that contained Sasuke. It would seem I will have to take you more seriously, he said and bent his knees, crossing his arms over his chest. This is the first dance. Dance of the Willow, he said as bones ripped from his flesh at his shoulders, his elbows, his palms, and his knees. Blood dripped from them and soaked his clothes as he rushed at Naruto. Naruto parried the first attack, a swipe from the palm aimed for his face. Naruto spun, dodging the second swipe from a knee at his chest. Naruto was analyzing Kimimaro's movements, each and every one of them were precise and unpredictable. Naruto ducked down under a slash from Kimimaro's elbow, before he drove his palm into Kimimaro's sternum. Kimimaro spun, swinging his arms around and finishing with a spin kick at the blonde, all the attacks dodged or blocked. Kimimaro would give the blonde credit, he was rather skilled. To be forced to use this against such trash, Kimimaro said as his shoulder gave a jerk. He reached up and grabbed the shoulder bone, his chakra modifying it as he pulled it from his body into a sword. Second dance, dance of the camellia, he said before rushing at the blonde, weaving an intricate dance with his sword. Naruto brought up his sword and parried and blocked the complex attacks. Some were where he blocked, some were not, and it was causing problems for Naruto. He knew he was faster than Kimimaro, and he had proved the albino could bleed at the very least without Kimimaro using his own abilities. Even now, Naruto could see the blood dripping down along Kimimaro's sword. Still, Naruto was taking the bone user quite seriously. He was dangerous, Naruto would give the older teen that much and then some. Naruto popped the guard off of his mother's sword and flicked it up, deflecting another one of Kimimaro's attacks, catching the second sword in his other hand as he spun and broke Kimimaro's sword, slicing through it with his wind chakra. Kimimaro looked at the broken blade of his bone and dropped it before his shoulder jerked once more and he pulled out another. My Kekkei Genkai allows me to manipulate the calcium in my body, allowing for the growth and regrowth of my bones at my will. I can also harden them to the point they are as strong as diamonds. It would appear that you are worthy of me using this trait. Kimimaro said. Naruto narrowed his eyes a bit. Enough talk, he said and dashed ahead, weaving his own intricate dance of sword play, forcing Kimimaro back as Naruto ducked, dodged, spun and slashed. Kimimaro kept up with every slash though, showing that his reactions were top-notch, even if his speed was less than Naruto's own. As Kimimaro was backed up, still blocking and parrying the blonde in front of him, he felt a coughing fit come on that he barely managed to suppress. The blonde nuisance was proving to be an actually skilled and upcoming shinobi. The problem was that Kimimaro didn't have much time left. Eventually, his body would decay that not even his own will, fueled by his desire to serve Orochimaru, would be enough to push forward. If only Kabuto could have healed him a bit more. Naruto leapt back just as Kimimaro gave a wet coughing sound and his breathing was getting heavier. Naruto's nose picked up a slight scent of blood, no doubt from Kimimaro coughing it up. Tayuya also mentioned Kimimaro's illness, something wrong with his lungs. Naruto felt bad, knowing Kimimaro was essentially a cripple fighting for the will of his lord. Naruto thought he was ready for the darker aspects of the shinobi world, yet this was something else. Naruto gripped his mother's swords tighter. Damn it, this went against everything that he believed in. Naruto hung his head, realizing that was somewhat hypocritical given some of the things he had done. Give up, Naruto told the albino. Please, we can take you to Konoha. Tsunade is there and she can heal you, she's the best damned medic in the world. Naruto said his body is still tight with the readiness to fight. I do not need your pity. Kimimaro said as he stood up straight once more and wiped the blood away on the sleeve of his top. His head turned as the barrel began to hiss, signaling that it would finish with the Uchiha soon. Kimimaro stood taller, and tapped into the power of his cursed seal, causing it to begin to spread. His breathing felt easier, even though he knew that was an illusion. It would only speed up his injuries. For Orochimaru-sama, I will fight on to deliver Sasuke-sama. Naruto was reminded briefly of Haku. Naruto rolled his shoulders a bit. So be it Kimimaro-san. Naruto said and combined his mother's swords back together again. He then took the kusanagi in hand, holding both of the swords in a firm grip but with a loose stance. Third dance Uzumaki Naruto, dance of the larch. Bones began to sprout from Kimimaro's skin, tearing the shirt more and causing blood to spill out. The biggest significant problem with his Kekkei Genkai, the Shikatsumyaku, was that the users were anemic. It was what accelerated his disease, using his abilities for Orochimaru. Because he was bleeding quite a bit based on the opponent, even his white blood cells spilled out. Having a rare blood type also made things difficult. Kabuto had difficulty finding a possible transfusion. The cursed seal from Orochimaru helped in this regard a little bit. It allowed for a minor healing factor, healing the damage as he did it. But the mark would only do so much. Kimimaro needed to end this battle. He rushed ahead at Naruto and began his wild and chaotic attacks, spinning and slashing at the blonde. He would give the blonde shinobi this, better men than he had finished before Kimimaro reached the third dance. Naruto grew bothered by this. Despite his speed and strength, he was having difficulty keeping up with Kimimaro. This changed when Kimimaro suddenly leapt back into a back flip. Naruto saw Lee, trying for the standard flying kick. Naruto raced past Lee, and summoned his chakra to flow through his coils and into his blades. Naruto slashed out with both, releasing a stream of wind chakra that launched the sharp blades out like lethal projectiles. Kimimaro leapt to the side, no doubt trying to keep what blood he had in his body. Suddenly the barrel that had Sasuke began to exude black smoke that reeked of evil chakra. Naruto actually covered his nose and his eyes became slit and red from the kyuubi. He was pissed, he had no idea why. The top of the barrel exploded and Sasuke leapt out, landing. Through the smoke, Naruto could see long hair that was quickly receding back into his head. Sasuke. Naruto yelled out, his voice amplified by his fury. Instead of responding, Sasuke glanced at Kimimaro. Keep going in the direction that you are facing to reach Orochimaru-sama. Kimimaro said before stepping forward, ready to fight once more. Lee, can you fight? Naruto asked sharply to the green spandex-clad boy beside him. Of course Naruto-kun, Tsunade-sama's treatment worked wonderfully. Lee said, bouncing on his heels a bit, no doubt keeping his muscles warmed up and loosened. Naruto nodded. Step behind me, he said before unfurling a scroll. Sasuke was running off, and Naruto needed to deal with Kimimaro. He unsealed the contents of the scroll and soaking wet sand began to pour out, raining water and sand down on Kimimaro, who was dodging. Naruto recently got the idea for this from Ikibi. Sabaku Sotaiso. Naruto shouted, using the sand to grab Kimimaro. This wouldn't stop the second stage of the cursed mark, but damned if he didn't try to make Lee's job easier. Naruto slammed his hands on the ground, pulsing his chakra out. The wet sand formed a large pyramid before condensing in size, crushing Kimimaro. Naruto then froze the water into a thick set of ice mirrors that interwove with the sand. Naruto glanced at Lee. It won't hold him for long, but he should waste a lot of chakra getting out. Naruto said before sprinting off after Sasuke, the Kyuubi's chakra actually making him faster but his anger more potent. Naruto paused momentarily, feeling the taint of evil chakra flare as Kimimaro broke free. Naruto glanced back behind him, "Be safe, Lee." He whispered softly. Did he feel bad about leaving a friend to possibly die? Yes, he did. Every instinct screamed for him to turn around and go help Lee. But Kakashi had never told Naruto what to do when both options were necessary to save a friend, a comrade in arms. Naruto put on a burst of speed, gritting his teeth. He would return Sasuke no matter what. He would destroy Orochimaru himself to get Sasuke back if necessary. Naruto had promised Mikoto to bring him back. Naruto burst through a small clearing of rocks and landed on the head of Hashirama Senju at the Valley of the End. He could see Sasuke across the valley on the head of Madara Uchiha. Sasuke. Naruto barked out in anger at his friend. Sasuke slowly turned around, turning to his left side. Naruto could see his friend's Sharingan blazing. He then saw the tainted markings of the cursed mark on Sasuke's right half of his body, even changing the color of his Sharingan to gold. Naruto. Sasuke said with a smirk. Cut the power off, Sasuke. It's revolting, Naruto said in a cold tone. When Sasuke didn't do so, Naruto spoke up. So this is Sasuke? Naruto asked. Just abandon everything you've ever been taught just for power to kill Itachi? Sasuke shook his head. Nothing else matters to me but killing Itachi. Sasuke shouted. What about your mother, Sasuke? Naruto shouted. Does she not matter? Does the only member of your family that you have left not matter to you anymore? What sort of bastard son are you that you'd abandon even your mother? Sasuke's head lowered some. I can't ask my mother to support me in this, he said softly. She'd be picking between her two sons. How can I ask her to support me? Sasuke raised his head. But it doesn't matter. You couldn't possibly understand. Naruto threw open his arms. How could I? Naruto said. I never had the family that you had. I was a bastard orphan that no one, and I do mean no one, actually wanted around. In fact, the only person that did care for me was Sandaime Hokage. Do you remember what happened to him? Naruto shouted. He could see Sasuke wince, remembering who exactly killed the Sandaime Hokage. Every time I look up, you're slowly drawing further and further ahead, Naruto. Sasuke clenched his hand into a fist. I can't keep being left behind. How can I gain the power to kill my brother when all I had to compare myself was you? You who defeated Haku, you who defeated Gaara, you who stole his way through the second exams. You brought back Tsunade-sama, you were trained by Jiraiya-sama. Why is it always you? Naruto watched Sasuke for a moment and lowered his head before sighing. Because I already had more power than I knew what to do with. Naruto said and stood straight and tall. Jiraiya of the Sannin is a seal master, Naruto was better, but that was beside the point at the moment. And I hold something back that is sealed in my very person. 14 years ago, the Biju known as the Kyuubi no Yoko attacked Konoha. The Yondaime Hokage didn't kill the beast like everyone says. Naruto unzipped the jacket and raised the fishnet. He sealed it away, inside me. He said and pulsed his chakra to the seal, making it appear. Jiraiya, being a seal master, is the only one with the knowledge to actually maintain the seal so that the Kyuubi never breaks free. Naruto could see the shock on Sasuke's face, and that shock allowed the cursed mark to fade away. Why you? Why did Yondaime pick you for the sealing? Because I am an Uzumaki, because I was born that day, because I was an orphan by the time of the attack, that no one would care if I was sealed with the Biju or not. Naruto said and shook his head. My mother died shortly after childbirth, and my father died that same day as well. I am one of the last members of a proud clan with special chakra that enhances our lifespan. Only an Uzumaki could hold the Kyuubi. Naruto was proud of his parents, of his lineage, but he also knew that he couldn't just tell that to Sasuke. He was already telling an S-ranked secret. He wasn't about to say something that was so classified it didn't exist. Sasuke clenched his fists tight. Fight me, he shouted out. Maybe he did act like an impudent child from time to time, angry that he wasn't getting his way, but he needed this. He needed to see where he was compared to his friend. Fight me, Naruto, fight me seriously. Naruto sighed softly and reached up, pinching the bridge of his nose. He knew what it would mean to fight Sasuke seriously. Very well, Naruto whispered softly before he re-zipped the vest of the Anbu outfit. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed before he opened them with the Rinnegan blazing. His hand reached up for the Kusanagi. He drew the lethal long sword and slashed out, cutting through the waterfall and forcing it to part with his wind element, slashing all the way over to Sasuke with the unwieldy power. He resheathed the sword when Sasuke dodged. Sasuke dove off of Madara's head, not wanting any of that lethal slash that Naruto threw his way. He rolled out of the way, on top of the water, just as Naruto jumped down with an axe kick that launched the water 20 feet in the air. Sasuke, using his Sharingan, could see that on the point of impact, Naruto released a buildup of massive amounts of chakra. Such control was unheard of to the young Uchiha. It couldn't be possible that Naruto had that much power hidden latent. Naruto turned around, hands already flying through hand seals. Sensatsu Susho, Naruto shouted, stomping on the water and forming the 1,000-long projectiles that tried to spear Sasuke. Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu. Sasuke called out, blowing out a stream of fire at the water that tried to skewer him. He winced as he felt one still pierce his leg, and he fell onto the water, just barely able to stand. Naruto froze the water that he felt on Sasuke's leg, stopping the bleeding and forcing Sasuke's leg into the same position, whether he wanted it to be that way or not. Sasuke glanced down to his frozen leg, only the chakra flowing through it and his other leg kept him afloat in the water. He punched the ice, fracturing it to let himself up. He then leapt away from Naruto, sticking to the waterfall, something that was surprisingly difficult, but he would manage. Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu. He blew out each of the small fireballs at Naruto, throwing some shuriken attached to wires at the same time. He would force Naruto to take him seriously. Naruto used the Kusanagi to block the fireballs. He was momentarily distracted at the clang of metal by the first one, and spun past the second one. He felt ninja wire wrap around him, tightening up and forcing him to look at Sasuke. Sasuke flew through some hand seals. His Chidori training helped him. Kaden, Ruka no Jutsu. He shouted, blowing onto the wires, the fire jutsu racing down along the wires in the shape of some twisted dragon of hell. He had only one stronger fire jutsu. Naruto felt momentary distress at the sight of the roaring dragon coming right at him. He flexed his hands. Shinra Tensai. He shouted, blasting away the fire, the wires, the shuriken, and the water around him in a powerful blast of repelling energy. Sasuke's eyes went momentarily wide as he realized that Naruto had even more power. Sasuke's budding danger senses, honed by Kakashi's training with the Chidori, caught something and he leapt away, moments before a blast of wood erupted from the waterfall he had been standing on. His head turned to the blonde who was crouched with his palms on the water. Naruto felt calm, even as he used the molten jutsu. Naruto flipped through one-handed seals on both hands before stomping his foot down, not even calling out his jutsu as the thousands of needles looked to skewer Sasuke. Naruto wasn't content enough with that. He needed to beat his friend and his comrade down. He needed to drop Sasuke hard enough that he would never do this again. Naruto lashed out with his chakra, feeling the sand and silt all around him, even as Sasuke threw a kunai at him. With a roar, Naruto brought all the sand into the air, bringing it around him like a shield before shuriken shot off from the sand, aiming at Sasuke. Sasuke was fast enough and nimble enough to dodge the wet sand, but that was all Naruto wanted. Heavy black chains, his chakra-destructive chains, launched out from the waterfall, whipping at Sasuke like mighty metal serpents. Sasuke felt fear, he felt anger, he felt despair, no doubt exactly what Itachi had demanded him to feel all those years ago. Sweet Kami, was this the full might of Naruto's power? He felt like an ant in comparison, like some sort of pressure was forcing itself down on his feet, making them like lead. Are you so weak, Sasuke-kun? Kukuku, I would have thought that Itachi's little brother would do better. Sasuke had no idea who the voice belonged to, but he could feel the rage inside boiling up. Perhaps it will be Naruto-kun to kill Itachi. He is after the blonde. Sasuke grit his teeth and clenched his fists tight. Use my power, sever your weak bonds and show the blonde your true power. Sasuke touched the mark on his neck. He had been injected with some formula after Orochimaru's bodyguards had offered him power. It was hard to ignore the allure of power, especially since he needed to get revenge on Itachi. Wait, revenge. Sasuke tapped into the power of the seal. Yes, revenge, that's what he wanted. The power began to flow through his veins and his chakra coils. He felt his wounded leg heal quickly. Black flame-like markings spread across his face. Kaden. Sasuke was about to inhale and blow out the fire when he realized something. Naruto was no longer there. Sasuke leapt away at the last second before an axe kick would have split him in half. It did send a crack upwards through the statue of Hashirama. Naruto turned with a back fist that Sasuke ducked under, and his fist slammed into the shins of Hashirama, breaking more stones away. Naruto rolled through his taijutsu, slipping into snake style, striking fast at Sasuke's curse-marked body. No more jutsu, Naruto would just beat the hell out of Sasuke until he gave up. Sasuke was fast, he prided himself on this fact and that he was even fast enough for the Chidori. But like when he fought against Lee before the exams, Sasuke was forced to admit that he wasn't the fastest. Worst yet was the fact that Naruto's moves were so misplaced it was impossible to counter. It's like seeing Naruto charging in for a shoulder tackle, and before he does that he snaps into a complex taijutsu move that Sasuke couldn't counter or copy. He couldn't see it coming because it was simply too fast. Sasuke rolled under Naruto's leg before another thunderous axe kick split the ground. Sasuke stood up, panting a bit and looking at the blonde's back. Sasuke watched as Naruto cracked his neck. Naruto was still toying with Sasuke. He could have destroyed him in an instant, could have knocked him out at any point he wanted to and completed his mission. Why then did he continue to toy with Sasuke? Naruto didn't know. Naruto turned on his heel and watched Sasuke, his eyes cold. He felt nothing about this battle. Naruto had nothing to prove by beating Sasuke. In fact, the only tie he could really say he had to this fight was keeping a promise to Mikoto and to keeping Orochimaru from getting Sasuke's body. Kyuubi's chakra wasn't even flowing through him anymore. Naruto cracked his knuckles, flexing his fingers to do so as he stared at Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke stared at Naruto's eyes, his breathing getting shallow and his pulse quickening. Why did the blonde's eyes remind him so much of Itachi's eyes? He could feel his fear building and he felt a slight emptiness. It was worse than Zabuza's killing intent, all those months ago. Still need more power, don't you, Sasuke-kun? Cuckoo, Draw upon the second stage, show your enemy why they are but a stepping stone in your path to greatness. That voice was in his head once more. Perhaps it was even deeper than before. Sasuke shuddered as he tapped into the cursed seal more, actually letting it flow through his very being. Naruto felt even more dispassionate about the fight even as Sasuke collapsed onto the ground, clutching his neck. His skin turned to a sickly brown color of all things. His sclerae turned black, even as he bore the Sharingan. His lips were a dark blue color. Naruto shook his head looking at the star-shaped black mark in the center of Sasuke's face. It was a perfect bullseye point. Naruto was briefly surprised at the sight of the wings that ripped from Sasuke's back. That would have him at a slight disadvantage. Not even close to enough of a disadvantage to give Sasuke the win though. Sasuke got back up on his feet. He was a good 10 feet away from Naruto. He flipped through 3 hand signs and generated the chakra at his hand, black electricity starting to generate around his hand. Chidori! He screamed out, racing along the ground as his jutsu gave a screeching sound so true to its name. Naruto shook his head, noting how Sasuke had used his wings to generate some force to push himself along with. Naruto dodged the Chidori, spinning around Sasuke's form. An axe kick to Sasuke's spine drove the other boy down. Naruto ground his foot into Sasuke's spine, getting the boy to let out a groan of pain. "I've had enough of this bullshit, Sasuke," Naruto said and stepped up onto Sasuke's back and grabbed the wings. Naruto growled out as he began to pull on them, getting Sasuke to squirm and scream in obvious pain. Naruto heart-popping sounds and soon the wings lay limp, the muscles literally pulled apart. Naruto'd his fist back, before he drove it into Sasuke's head, making the Uchiha's face bounce off the rock, knocking him out. Naruto shook his hand briefly before he looked at the cursed seal. He knelt down and touched it, already forming a key seal in his mind. The medic in his mind, made by the large amount of medical jutsu he could perform, was already figuring a way to withdraw the enzymes that kept Orochimaru's influence over the bearer of the seal. In 10 minutes, Naruto unlocked the seal and destroyed the enzymes. He hefted Sasuke's form, his reverted form, and started the long march back to Konoha. Eventually, Naruto met up with Kakashi and Pakun, who silently turned and followed Naruto as the blonde walked. Naruto paused when they got to a forest of bones and sand. Given that Naruto didn't see a skewered form of Lee or Gaara, Naruto deduced Gaara had been there by the sheer amount of sand, and Naruto figured that they had already started heading back. Naruto kept going, coming across the form of some nameless wannabe that was crushed under logs, the logs split with wind chakra. Naruto visited each and every battlefield of the Oto Nin that had attacked, with the exception of one. But that was because Kiba had taken that guy off a cliff. Naruto eventually made it back to Konoha and he took Sasuke right to the hospital. Sasuke was taken to a room with Anbu guards around it. Naruto sighed and plopped down next to Shikamaru who was twiddling his thumbs waiting. Naruto inclined his head to Temari, who no doubt had been dispatched to help out. Naruto would have to deal with her soon enough. Choji? Naruto asked Shikamaru, jerking his head to the they were in front of. Yeah, Shikamaru said. Neji was brought in, I heard it was bad. In fact I think Kiba and Akamaru are the only ones still conscious that got badly injured. Naruto looked down to Shikamaru's broken finger and stood up. Well, I know a thing or two about medical jutsu. Let me go see if I can help. Naruto headed into the ER. Some raised and muffled voices later, and soon there was nothing, worrying Shikamaru some more. Naruto walked out about 20 minutes later, looking strained. I don't know Shika, Naruto said and took off down the halls, going to Neji's room. He had important orders. The operations were delicate procedures, both of them. Shizune and Tsunade were both doing their absolute best with some of the best medics helping. Naruto was essentially useless to both of them except for one thing. Naruto was a massive source of chakra, and he could be a battery of sorts for 6 different medic nin at once. Naruto walked out first of all the medics from Neji's room, seeing Hiyashi and Hinata there. He wiped the sweat off his face for a moment, keeping his face blank. I'm not the one to be asking. Shizune Ni-chan will be out in a moment, Naruto said before walking away. Naruto found an empty bench and just sat in it. He heard a slight, clacking sound and turned his head to look at Jiraiya. Good job Gaki, Sanin said and sat down beside him. Thanks, I suppose, Naruto said and rubbed his face a bit. So how's your first S-ranked mission success feel? Jiraiya asked, somewhat amused. S-ranked? Naruto asked incredulously. The most he had was an A- rank which had been the wave cluster. Jiraiya nodded. Originally, it had been an A- ranked, low mind you. Group of enemy Nin, and Oto is most assuredly an enemy, coupled with the fact that you were retrieving a clan heir. Throw in who said clan heir was being kidnapped by, and the official story will be that he was kidnapped, as well as the fact that the enemy had reinforcements. You have the makings for an S-ranked mission. Jiraiya clapped Naruto on the back. So good job. Naruto held his face in his hand. Whoa, he said and shook his head. It kind of just feels surreal to be honest with you, he said. Jiraiya nodded and clapped Naruto on his shoulder again. Well, enjoy the downtime. Everyone gets a mandatory 2-week vacation after an S-ranked mission. Naruto looked up to Jiraiya. How do you know about all the details though? He asked. Jiraiya looked back at Naruto. Already talked to the Nara kid, he said before heading off. Naruto shook his head, barely able to believe what he did. He looked up at the ceiling and sighed softly before giving a grin. It all worked out pretty well, no one but the enemy died. Naruto stood in Tsunade's office, giving his own additional information to the debriefing taking place. After all, only he had chased down and beaten Sasuke into the ground. Sasuke surprisingly had torn back muscles. Who knew that the damage from Naruto ripping at the wings would translate through? Tsunade listened as the blonde finished his report. She pinched the bridge of her nose. I know at least what happened to my grandfather's statue and why it has a big crack in it, she said with a sigh. She looked at her fellow blonde. There are some who don't want to list this as an S-ranked mission. Shikamaru is among them surprisingly. Something about the records making it for him to slack off. Naruto shrugged a bit. Truth be told, I don't care what you label it as. Everyone got home relatively safely, the enemy was beaten soundly. Naruto rolled his eyes at the unintentional pun the same time Tsunade did. And best of all, Orochimaru doesn't have his Uchiha body lying around to train. Tsunade nodded before thinking about things. Given the circumstances, we'll list it as an A-ranked. It will be cheaper in the village to pay the retrieval group an A-ranked mission pay, and the support B-ranked support mission pay. It may seem cheap of me to do, but we're still working on getting the village back on its feet. Rebuilding from a war is slow progress. Naruto shrugged a bit. Sounds good to me. To be honest, I feel bad about that Kimimaro guy, he reminded me so much of Haku it was scary. Except that Orochimaru didn't seem to really care about him. Tsunade nodded. The last of the Kagaya clan died out. That's actually upsetting if you think about it. Despite their violent ways, they were still a clan of the ninja world. Naruto nodded before offering her a wry smirk. So was the Uzumaki clan Tsunade, he said softly and crossed his arms over his chest. But we're still alive and kicking. There might be some Kagaya out there. Just then a figure burst through Tsunade's door and Naruto turned, seeing Tayuya panting heavily, her long hair draping in front of her eyes. She grabbed the blonde and pulled him into a tight embrace with a heavy kiss on his lips, complete with tongue. Tsunade felt her eyebrow twitching and her desk cracked where she gripped it a little tightly. Must not kill redhead, she thought as she saw the redhead's tongue probing Naruto's tonsils. If you're done Tayuya-san, Tsunade said through gritted teeth. I was about to finish with a debriefing. Tayuya pulled back from the blonde's lips. Shut up you old bat, she said before looking at Naruto and resting her head on his chest. Don't scare me like that again dipshit, please, ever, she said softly. She had genuinely been afraid when she found out that Naruto had fought against Kimimaro, even up to the Dance of the Larch. The Sound 4 had to tap into their cursed mark level 2 to stand up against the Dance of the Larch. Naruto touched Tayuya's back and gently stroked her spine. "I'm sorry Tayuya-chan," he said softly. "Go home, I'll be there soon," he told her and watched her leave to go home before turning his attention back to Tsunade. Naruto offered a slight shrug at her pissed-off look. He was worried she would blow holes in her desk from how hard she was thrumming her fingers across the wood. Tsunade sighed and shook her head. "Dismiss Naruto, we'll get your payment to you soon." There wasn't anything else to talk about. Naruto offered a salute before heading out and going home. While he wanted to finish what Tayuya started earlier, at the moment he needed a shower and a hot meal. He got into his shower and turned it on to full blast. He waited for the hot water to pour out by stripping his clothes. He got under the blast of water and sighed, rubbing the tense muscles of his neck. Naruto soon scrubbed the grime of the mission off and headed out to his living room in just a towel. He looked at the couch before passing it up for the kitchen. He boiled some water and made about 6 cups of instant ramen. He took them to the living room and set them on the coffee table before sitting on the couch. He looked up to the ceiling. That mission could have been one great big cluster. Naruto shuddered, thinking about what he would have done had he not been thrown into this game. He would have likely ended up tapping into the Kyuubi's power, spamming clones against Kimimaro. Naruto shook his head softly. He had won, he got Sasuke out of there. He started to dig into the ramen, enjoying the hot broth and noodle goodness. This was the way to his heart, right through his stomach after a rough mission. Naruto was on cup 6 when someone knocked at his door. He glanced over at it and adjusted his towel, making sure it was fitting snug. "It's open," he called out. Having Ikibi and Temari on one side, Kin, Karin, and Tayuya on the other, Naruto got used to them coming over, but they knocked first so he always told them it was open. Instead of one of the few he expected, Mikoto walked in and closed the door, walking quickly over to Naruto and hugging him, straddling his waist at the same time as his face was pressed into her wonderful cleavage. "Thank you Naruto-kun, thank you for getting my son back," she said softly. Naruto glanced up and noticed the redness of Mikoto's face. She had been crying. He reached up and cupped her cheek. "I promised I would bring him back to Mikoto-chan. I hope I can talk some sense into him, but he is obsessing over Itachi." Mikoto nodded before slipping from the blonde's lap, carefully, and sat beside him, leaning against him a bit. Naruto wrapped an arm around Mikoto's shoulders and drew her into a better hug, holding her contently as he just thought about everything that had happened. He felt her shake a bit, and Naruto gently stroked her raven hair back. "Don't worry, we brought him home," Naruto said softly and kissed the top of her head as he continued to hold her in the silence. Mikoto slowly calmed down and her eyes closed for a moment. She tilted her head up and kissed the blonde that had saved her baby boy. She slipped her tongue between his lips, kissing him deeply and passionately. She tried to convey all of her thanks into that single kiss. She just hoped that Naruto got it. Naruto gave a soft groan. He always enjoyed the taste of Mikoto when she kissed him. He slipped his tongue along hers, working it against hers in an erotic dance. Mikoto pulled back eventually. She didn't want to be quite out of breath just yet. She bit her plump lip and reached into Naruto's towel, enjoying the feel of his thickness playing against her hand. She wrapped her hand around his semi-flaccid form and began to pump, feeling his harden. I want to thank you properly, Naruto-kun," she whispered in a huskier tone. She always felt so damned good around the blonde. "But I have my own duties to attend to, so I'll make it quick." Mikoto leaned her head down and took the tip of Naruto into her mouth before moaning at the fleshy taste of him. Naruto groaned and gritted his teeth at the same time. Mikoto was impressive in the use of her mouth. It was always wet and hot, more so than most other women. Naruto put a hand on Mikoto's back, stroking it and feeling the straps of her bra underneath. He really wanted to on her nipples, get her to cry out in ecstasy at his ministrations. But he knew this was not about him, it was about her thanking him for saving her son. Mikoto slowly leaned her head down and began to take more of the blonde's impressiveness. She enjoyed the taste quite a bit, and she kept trying to work it deeper. Her eyes closed for a moment before she shifted to be on the ground between Naruto's knees. Her eyes flashed to the crimson Sharingan and she took Naruto down into her throat, slightly coughing as she did so. She didn't repress her need to gag at all. She knew the effects of having her throat spasm around Naruto would slowly drive him to an orgasm. She was pleasantly surprised to see Naruto's own Sharingan, gifted to him by the Kyuubi, staring down at her. It was erotic. Fugaku had never turned him on for this purpose. Naruto wanted to memorize this. He wanted to memorize each and every bob of her head that Mikoto performed, slowly working his into her mouth and deeper yet into her throat. Naruto gripped his thighs a bit, moaning loudly at her work. "Mikoto-chan," Naruto said in a huskier tone of his own. Her on his always felt good. Mikoto felt a bit of pride swell in her chest, knowing not everyone could get Naruto to react the way she did. She began to bob her head on and off of his, slowly working her lips up and down, taking him deeper and deeper. Soon her lips pressed around the base of his and she nuzzled her face down a little bit, getting the blonde to wiggle a bit in her throat. Mikoto pulled back and breathed for a moment, inhaling deeply as she savored the taste of the blonde still on her tongue. Kami, she wanted to strip her clothes off and get in the blonde's lap and ride him until she was sore. She steeled herself and took him deep once more, her hand reaching up and cupping his sack. Naruto leaned his head back a little bit as he felt Mikoto on him more firmly, with renewed vigor like she was trying to make him blow. Feeling her squeeze and massage his balls was also a heavenly feeling in itself. Naruto gave a low groan, feeling Mikoto pull off his balls. He even swore under his breath. Mikoto reached up and began to pump Naruto's. "Come on Naruto-kun," she whispered ever so softly. "Give it to me, I want it so much," she said softly before she took his tip into her mouth and with all the pleasant sensations she could give. She even stroked her tongue against the bottom edge of the head of his, tasting how he felt. She could taste the pre-cum building up, and she was swallowing her own saliva. Naruto let out a loud moan of pure pleasure, and his hips bucked up against Mikoto's mouth. His balls swelled for a moment before he released, flooding her mouth and throat with his sizable amount of cum. Despite this though, Mikoto was a champ who swallowed every last drop without letting a single bit spill. She pulled off, breathing heavily. "Oh," Mikoto panted, savoring the salty taste still on her face. She sat on her knees for a moment and rubbed her thighs, desperate to force away the feeling of need. She wanted Naruto so badly to ride him until he shouted her name and blew a thick wad of cum inside of her. Mikoto stood up and smiled seductively at Naruto. "Come see me again, hopefully we can work out some time that we'll both have Naruto-kun, and I'll thank you properly," she said and turned away, walking to the door with a sway to her hips. "He still rocks hard. Damn it, why did she have to be busy the one time he managed to find some downtime from work and training?" Mikoto flipped her hair over her shoulder and turned her head to look at Naruto. "Oh, and, if you do," she eased the tight-fitting shinobi pants down over her hips, showing off her and the dark blue thongs she was wearing that dug into the flesh of her skin quite pleasantly. "You'll get to see a lot more." Mikoto pulled her pants back up over her hips and sashayed her way out. Naruto growled and bit into his knuckle, trying to get the pain of his desire down. "Hell," he muttered as he stood up, heading back to the shower. Whereas last time he had let it beat down on him as hot as possible, this time he had the water on as cold as possible. Mikoto was a tease and he loved it. Naruto eventually calmed down and was laying in his bed, just enjoying a bit of time to relax. He was also thinking quite a bit, something he had been doing quite a bit lately. He needed a bigger place to live. 3 apartments were fine, for the time being, but he was no doubt going to need more room. He glanced at the book and moved it between his fingers a bit. Who could have made such a thing? Why him? He sighed a moment and set the book back in his nightstand. So many questions, too few answers. Naruto put his hand on his face. Whether he liked it or not, he had a moral dilemma also. Temari was something he needed to work out. He still got angry, thinking of her essentially raping him. Hell, their villages were allies. At the time, she could have probably asked him for it, explained the situation, and he would have given it to her. Naruto punched the wall, careful not to use Tsunade's super strength. That was something he didn't need to try and explain, or fix. As with Kurenai, he had made an example of Temari. He had a momentary feeling of weakness that could spell disaster for those that were close to him, and thinking of Ayame, Mikoto, Tsunade, Shizune, Tayuya, Kin, Hana, Tsume, Karin, Ikibi, even some of his classmates, the thought of them getting hurt, it made his anger boil up. But unlike Kurenai, Temari didn't have a reprieve from his anger. She was still suffering. Naruto dragged his hand down his face and looked up to the ceiling of the room. He was going to take care of it, he had to let go. Maybe when they were done, he and Temari could start over again. Then there were a variety of personal projects that Naruto was working on, chief among them a way to send a message over long distances near instantaneously. An hour was too slow, and it seemed the further away most of the things he worked with went, then the longer it went too. It could literally revolutionize communications among the shinobi nations, not just the 5 great ones but also among the multitude of smaller ones such as Kusa, Aim, Taki, even Hoshi was in there. Naruto nestled his face into his pillow. Tomorrow he would deal with Temari and then he would put forth as much effort as possible into making a seal that would let him speak over long distances. He didn't want people to be too worried about him, and he had given Koyuki the Hiraishin Kunai. He didn't want to answer thinking an emergency was popping up only to find out she called upon him just to talk or have. Naruto seriously doubted that Koyuki would be the last to receive his kunai, both literally and figuratively. The next morning, Naruto woke up to the smell of something delicious cooking. He stood up and got dressed, heading out to see the Ikibi swaying as she cooked, her tail swishing in the air as well. "Morning Naruto-kun," she said quite cheerfully as she cooked some eggs. Naruto went over to the Biju and hugged her from behind. "Morning," he said and held her from behind. Naruto turned and watched as Temari silently did the dishes in just the maid outfit, the same tight one that the Ikibi had made her wear that she threatened to pop out of. Naruto silently sighed against Ikibi's skin. "Temari, go take a quick shower, we're about to eat and you're eating with us." Naruto said. "Yes Naruto-sama," Temari said a bit meekly. It must have galled her to do so, but she was still his slave, not the other way around. She turned and headed to take a shower. "I need your help with something Ichihi-chan," Naruto said softly and continued to hold his demonic lover. "Of course Naruto-kun," she said and turned in his arms, her tail moving the skillet off the heat. "I need to get over my anger at Temari in one fell swoop. I can't have anything left of it," Naruto said, looking up at the slightly taller female. The buxom blonde nodded, thinking for a moment and biting her lip softly. "Well, you could hear. Translate all that anger into a dual drive and just pound her into a wall, spank her, pull on her hair, and even tie her up. Be a little rough with her." Naruto thought about that for a moment before looking at the mischievous golden eyes of Ikibi. "You're going to be right beside me doing it, aren't you?" Naruto thought about what Ikibi was saying. Could he translate his anger into Temari as hard as possible? He thought it had merit. It was essentially what he did to Kurenai. Naruto sat at the table and Ikibi dished up 3 plates of scrambled eggs and bacon. What they would be doing would require energy, so they would be doing it after they ate. Temari came out, dressed once more in the maid outfit and sat down across from Naruto while Ikibi sat beside him. They ate in relative silence, something that was just fine with Naruto. After all, they would be making some noise soon enough. Naruto finished last and went to his couch, sitting down on it. "Come here Temari," he said simply. "Yes Naruto-sama," Temari said and walked towards Naruto with a sense of trepidation, like she was walking towards her doom. Still, she was a proud and unbroken kunoichi, she wouldn't back down. Naruto looked up at Temari, right in her eyes for a while. "I'm still angry," he said bluntly and straight to the point as he felt Ikibi's hands run over his shoulders before rubbing the tight muscles. "I'm still pissed off at what you did, actually raping me." Naruto shook his head. But I can't keep holding onto that anger, so I'm going to translate it into something else. Temari swallowed a bit. I understand Naruto-sama, she said softly. She was prepared for the blonde's wrath, to feel his fist smacking into her over and over. She would take the punishment with stoicism. Once I'm done though, you're free to go home. Naruto said simply. Your clothes and tools will be returned to you and you can head home to Suna and we will put this behind us. I'm going to you as hard as I can, and Aikibi is going to help. Temari swallowed again. She could see the predatory look in Aikibi's eyes, and the amusement. But she would get to go home. Her heart swelled in her chest. Naruto wasn't a bad person, simply human. She was grateful to have a second chance with the blonde. Kneel, Naruto said as Aikibi walked over and sat beside him. He felt Aikibi's hands work on his pants, pulling out his. He watched the Biju lick her lips in anticipation. Temari sank to her knees and winced when she felt Naruto grab her hair. Her mouth opened wide and she took him into her mouth. She had him before, as preparation for him, but this time he was in complete control. He bobbed her head on and off the thick shaft, and Temari wasn't entirely sure if she could take him too well. Her gag reflex was already proving to be a problem, but she fought it as best as she could. Aikibi licked her lips again, watching her fellow blonde bobbing her head on and off Naruto's. She allowed her clothes to fade into sand and sat up a bit more. Naruto-kun, on my nipple please, she whispered softly, lifting her large to Naruto's mouth. Naruto was more than happy to comply, locking his mouth around Aikibi's large nipple and hard, biting and nibbling, making her moan loudly with her tail swishing around. He felt her hand on the back of his head and the other hand on Temari's head. Naruto and Aikibi were both making Temari take his into the back of her throat, and the fan user's throat massaged him with its spasms. Temari gagged harshly. Naruto was thickened with the Aikibi pressing her head down much more than Naruto did. She was forced to take more than she was comfortable with, a lot more. Still she tried bobbing her head on and off her tongue flicking against the bottom of the shaft. She winced a bit, feeling her hair get tugged on. She steeled herself and took Naruto down to the base, suppressing her gag reflex as best as she could, her eyes watering a bit. Aikibi moaned a bit more, pressing Naruto's head to her a bit more. She rocked her hips a bit, instinctually wanting something, anything, inside of her. She watched as Temari gagged on Naruto's full, servicing her master. Good girl, Aikibi said, removing her hand from Temari's head for a moment. Aikibi gave a loud and lewd moan when she felt Naruto tug on her nipple with his teeth. She pouted when he released her to look down at Temari. Naruto felt his swelling, his orgasm building from Temari's mouth and the forced stimulation she was giving. He slid his fingers into her hair a bit more, pulling on it a little bit as he rocked his hips up to Temari's mouth. Getting close, he told her. Temari more vigorously, bobbing her head on and off his, only taking about half his length as she worked. Her eyes closed, almost savoring the taste and the coming release from her fellow blonde. She could feel it building in his body. She wanted to taste it, she wanted to taste her reward for her hard work. Aikibi moved quickly and pulled Temari's head off, making the blonde kunoichi's eyes widen and Naruto's narrow at her. Aikibi immediately leaned down and suppressed her gag reflex as she took Naruto down to the hilt, shortly before he released into her warm tight throat, her golden eyes looking up to him in a seductive manner, making a slow show of pulling off of him. Slaves don't get that delicious taste, Aikibi said. Naruto was momentarily upset at Aikibi, thinking she was going to calm him down from his orgasm for some unknown reason or a power play on her part. Seeing that she was just stealing Temari's treat away though, he could see her plan, especially at Temari's shocked expression. Naruto brought Temari into his lap, popping open her top so she spilled out in front of him. Naruto was going to feel this session, it wasn't going to be easy on him. Temari used her arms to balance herself against Naruto while she straddled his waist. She was oddly enough looking forward to feeling the blonde fill her once more. She was determined not to have this orgasm stolen from her by the Aikibi. This one would be all hers and not the other blonde woman's. Aikibi licked her lips. If I may, Naruto-kun, why not bend her over, pin her arms behind her back? That would give you plenty of leverage. Aikibi said with a small smirk of her own as she helped position Temari so she was bent over the table, her round exposed to Naruto, and she was looking over her shoulder at the blonde. He's not the only one you need to focus on, sweetheart. Aikibi said and sat in front of Temari, her legs splayed wide to expose her wetness. Naruto used one hand to pin Temari's arms to the small of her back and pushed her head against the Aikibi's opening. Eat her out, he said and rubbed himself against Temari's, noticing that Aikibi didn't have Temari wear any form of underwear. Naruto pushed inside of Temari, hearing her give a muffled groan to match his own groan. Temari was tight and wet and gripped his tightly. He drew back slowly, enjoying the way she felt. Temari was in a state of limbo. On one hand, she hated what she was forced to do. Many times in Temari's confinement, the Aikibi had her eat the woman's food. Her tongue probed into the folds, tasting the sweet juices. It always reminded her of some of the fruit found in Suna. On the other hand, she was getting the hard thrusts of Naruto, filling her up and making her push closer to an orgasm with each thrust. It wasn't a pressing feeling yet, but she knew it was only a matter of time. Aikibi moaned out loudly, reclining more into the chair of sand that she had made. Her Naruto-kun, her good and punish her. Aikibi said and groaned a bit at Temari's tongue against her. She grabbed Temari's hair, taking over from Naruto's hand, and grinded herself against Temari's tongue. Naruto grabbed Temari's hip with his now free hand. He adjusted his feet so they were a little wider before he began to Temari, each thrust giving a loud smack of flesh against Temari's hip. He heard her moaning more, though muffled by the Aikibi. The table moved with each and every hard thrust, and Temari was making grunting sounds as though she was having difficulty focusing. Naruto could feel her tightening up on his, close to her orgasm. Aikibi moved her feet a bit better onto the table, giving her some stability. She grabbed Temari's hair and ground herself against Temari's mouth and tongue, moaning loudly as she forced the blonde kunoichi's nose to rub against her. She was so close, so damned close, and she could see that Naruto was clenching his jaw, no doubt staving off his own orgasm. Aikibi couldn't hold back, her back arched and she came. She screamed out in orgasm, her juices flooding into Temari's mouth as her hips bucked. Aikibi's orgasm set off Temari, who gave her own scream of pleasure and bucked against Naruto's hips. Naruto bit into his lip, tasting blood even, as he staved off his orgasm while he continued to pound into Temari's sweet body, rocking the table she was on and smacking her again. He was so close, he motioned Aikibi over, who quickly got up. Naruto pulled out of Temari and sat down, quickly being taken inside of Aikibi as she straddled his waist. In a few short pumps up into her tight, hot he blew his load, giving a groan and making Aikibi moan out in pleasure at being filled. Temari looked back over her shoulder, panting and distraught. She had earned the blonde's cum, damn it. She throbbed with need, desire to be filled. Please, Naruto-sama, Temari said, crawling onto the couch. Why are you being so cruel? She asked in a shaking voice. She was a strong kunoichi, damn it, but her body craved the sensation of being filled by the blonde male. Aikibi smirked, seeing that they were getting to Temari even more than they had in the past 2.5 months. Oh no, Temari-chan. Naruto-kun's hot cum is all mine today. Every last little drop, she said in a husky tone. She began to roll her hips and ride the blonde under her, pulling his head into her, feeling his mouth latch onto her nipple. She moaned out, licking her lips. She grabbed Temari's hair and pulled her to the other, holding both of her partner's heads to her. Her eyes rolled into the back of her head, feeling Temari and Naruto both on her nipples. Oh yes, that's it, she said, moaning loudly and lewdly. Naruto put his hands on Aikibi's hips to stabilize her and keep her balanced. He nibbled on her nipple before tugging on it with his teeth. He pumped up into her, driving every inch of his into her. He moved one hand away from Aikibi's hips and moved it between Temari's thighs, 2 fingers working into her wet and his palm grinding against her. Temari moaned out in pleasure, pulling herself from Aikibi's, only for her face to get pushed back onto it. Temari moaned into the fullness of the bijus, her teeth clamping down onto the sensitive butt a bit and tugging on it with her teeth. She flicked her tongue over the blue markings along her skin, and moaned more, squeezing her own. Temari looked at the pleased Aikibi and had an idea. If Aikibi came faster, then perhaps Naruto would hear again and blow his load inside of her this time. Temari squeezed Aikibi's before slipping her middle finger into her, feeling the muscles tighten up around the digit. Aikibi squirmed, she could feel her orgasm building already and it was a glorious feeling. "Oh, thank you Naruto-kun, I've missed your fat deep inside my body." She whispered and kissed the blonde on the top of his head. "Even Temari-chan's finger feels good. On my nipples more, please," she said, pushing their heads against her more, moaning as they more vigorously. She adjusted her hips a little bit and hissed out in pleasure as she purposely had Naruto brush against her G-spot, making her sounds increase. She closed her eyes and shook her head, her ears twitching slightly as she could barely control herself. Naruto barely kept himself from gritting his teeth. He didn't want to hurt Aikibi's nipple after all, as he tried to keep himself from having an orgasm. She was a lewd woman and used that to her advantage. He smacked her on her at the angle she wanted, making her moans turn into near screams of pleasure while her hips jerked and her body gave a few spasms. Temari's eyes watched the expression of Aikibi while she worked a second finger into her. She could tell that the busty blonde woman was about to come, she was about to orgasm all over Naruto's. Temari could feel her own orgasm building as she grinded her hips against Naruto's palm. She moaned a bit more, feeling his palm press into her more and his fingers worked inside of her so good. Temari's hips jerked against Naruto's hand until her back arched, pulling off of Aikibi's nipple. She came, her hips bucking as she gave a loud moan of pleasure, her entire body shaking from the effort. Aikibi's breathing was hitched. Temari's fingers had curled in her and Naruto spanked her again for her efforts. "Naruto-kun." She screamed out his name as her entire body jerked and she came. Her hands clutched the blonde to her as her entire body seized up and her eyes rolled into the back of her head. Naruto's G-spot had completely shut her mind for a moment. She could barely think of anything but the overwhelming pleasure. Naruto could barely breathe, but he made do with the air that he could get. Feeling and hearing both the girls come, Naruto himself could barely hold back. He hadn't stopped pumping into Aikibi's body as she had her orgasm, drawing it out for both of their enjoyment. But he couldn't hold back. He gave a muffled groan and finally came inside Aikibi's body once more, pumping her full of his cum. Naruto slowly moved Aikibi off of him and stood up. He noticed that Temari was panting, still coming down from her own orgasm, while Aikibi was coming down from hers, her tail sometimes giving a slight twitch. He shook his head humorously before he moved over to Aikibi and picked her up bridal style. "I need you to move Ichi-chan," he said and took her over to the chair she made and laid her on in, letting her lounge. Naruto then turned to regard Temari once more before he walked over to her. "As for you Temari-chan, I have something special in mind." Naruto then sat down and drew her in his lap so her back was against his chest. "Now relax," he told the blonde from Suna. Temari looked over her shoulder, biting her lip at being told to relax. It was extremely hard to relax with his pressing against her, but she tried to relax herself, breathing a little easier, a little calmer. She tensed up as she felt the blonde rubbing her soaking. She relaxed slowly from the stimulation, but he then began to rub the juices against her and she looked back at the blonde again. "Please Naruto-sama, please don't," she whispered. Aikibi raised an eyebrow from her position of resting. "Is the slave questioning Naruto-kun? I think she'll need to be punished for that," she said and wiggled down into the chair a bit more, planning on enjoying the view. Temari shot the blonde Biju with a dirty look. "Then you take him up," she snapped, a moment of fire in her system at Aikibi's words. "Oh Temari-chan, I've been there, done that, and I loved every second of it." Aikibi moved so her legs were held straight up in the air and she spread her cheeks. "And if you don't want it, Naruto-kun can always come over and give it to me until I'm a screaming limp mess for him." Before they could argue, Naruto stepped in. "Enough, both of you," he said simply. Ichi-chan, you'll get your turn. He ignored the small pleased purr she gave at the idea. Right now I have to work on Temari-chan, he said and soon began to work his finger into her, making sure to lube her up properly. At first, Temari winced with a little pain at the first intrusion. Her teeth gritted for a little bit before her body began to get the stimulation from the blonde. Her breathing turned a little shallower and she rocked her hips a bit more. She squirmed as she felt a second finger work into her. "Oh Kami," she whispered softly. Naruto pressed and soon worked his fingers out of her. She was still a slave and still needed to be punished, not only for questioning him, but also given that he was going to release her from his ownership once this was over. That being said, Naruto put his against her, barely lubed up from the Aikibi's spilled juices. He worked the thick tip inside of Temari, getting her to make small sounds that sounded like they were a mixture of pain and pleasure. Temari could feel herself slowly being stretched out from the invading. She clutched her thighs, digging her blunted nails into them. She shook her head, her hair whipping around a bit. She said. Slowly though, the big red blonde behind her managed to work every last inch inside of her and she breathed heavily. Sure, there was a throbbing pain, but at the same time there was a powerful sense of pleasure. Aikibi stood up, rested enough to have feeling back in her legs as she walked over to the two intertwined together. She pushed back on Temari's legs, getting Naruto to pull back on them and making them spread open wide. She then straddled Naruto's legs and moved closer to Temari, so they brushed against one another and she was pressed right against Temari's soaked. Aikibi felt Naruto's hands on her, pulling her closer to keep both her thighs and Temari's thighs spread wide. Her breath hitched a bit as she felt Naruto draw out of Temari and thrust upwards, making Temari's brush against her own. Pinned between the slow thrusts of her master, and the softness of Aikibi's body and the rubbing of their s and nipples, Temari was barely able to breathe. She made little whimper sounds as Naruto pushed deep into her over and over. Her head rested against the Aikibi, trying to rock between the two dominant forces in her life. It was for him, holding so far ahead and pulling back. He wasn't cruel enough to just Temari's without restraint, especially when he was already pressing so deep inside of her already. Naruto slowly began to pick up speed though, thrusting into Temari's body, making her hips push against Aikibi. Aikibi's breathing hitched a bit more and she let out a slow moan as she felt Temari's nails scratch her back. Her Naruto-kun, her until she can't think anymore. Aikibi had no idea at the moment if she was thinking of herself or of Temari, but it didn't matter in the slightest. Temari jerked a bit as she felt the blonde behind her start her. Oh, she called out, trying to rock her hips back into the slab of working in and out of her. Oh Kami, yes, thank you Naruto-sama. Temari said. She had no idea such pleasure existed, and yet feeling the blonde pound into her, her orgasm was building faster than ever. Temari's was tight, Naruto couldn't deny that one. The way her legs were spread also made it tighter and her gripped him tight. He smacked Aikibi's, getting her to moan some as well. Temari's and Aikibi's synchronized moans sounded like music to him. Aikibi was panting by this point, she was sensitive from the orgasms she had already had. Her nails dug into Temari's back a bit and her entire body bucked a bit. She screamed out in orgasm, her back arching and dragging her nipples over Temari's. What was it about Naruto that she couldn't hold back with him? Temari only had a moment of satisfaction. She had outlasted Aikibi. Her orgasm overtook her then and she came, her clenching down on Naruto's. Her orgasm turned that much as satisfaction filled her when the blonde pumping in and out of her filled her body with hot cum. Her eyes rolled into the back of her head as she went limp. Naruto breathed a little heavier as he eased out of Temari's. He shifted both girls so Aikibi was to his right and Temari was to his left. He stood up, his legs a little shaky, but he walked to the kitchen. He washed him off, cleaning himself up. He went over to the two girls and watched as Aikibi came back around. Temari still seemed out of it. Naruto-kun, are you going to my now? Aikibi asked in a sultry voice, with just a touch of poutiness to convey what she wanted. Naruto chuckled a little bit, and saw that like the first time, she had produced plenty of juices for her to be lubed up already. Of course Ichi-chan. He told her and motioned her up. He picked her up, setting his legs in a wide stance to support her weight. But you have to help. Ayame licked her lip, she couldn't wait really to try this. It would show the blonde's strength and endurance if he could her while standing. She reached down and stroked his bit, making sure it was as hard as possible. She then moved him to push into her and slowly worked her hips down. The angle was all wrong for depth, she could only get about 3/4 of his inside of her. But it felt like he was filling her so much more. She moaned softly, shuddering from the feel. Naruto supported Ayame's weight and slowly began to work her up and down, making sure to feel out how everything was going to be. She was tight, and he couldn't go balls deep because of the angle. The vice-like feel of her also kept him from just pounding in and out of her. Naruto improvised, he began to bounce her up and down along his, holding her weight quite well. He could do this. He worked in and out of her, feeling her grip on his slowly loosen a little to allow him to pump faster. Temari had recovered enough to watch the show that was being performed and she felt a small spike of arousal. She looked at her legs which barely responded. She rolled onto the floor and crawled on hands and knees over to the pair, between Naruto's legs. There was plenty of room for what she planned. She leaned up and began to lap at Naruto's balls. Ayame gave a bit of a shudder as Naruto heard a little faster. Oh thank you, she whispered and kissed Naruto on the shoulder. Temari's soft hair brushing against her thighs just made the sensation even better. She knew exactly what Temari was doing, and she thought it was kind of hot. Naruto gave a soft grunt. Temari was really testing his control. He shifted his hold on Ayame a bit, holding her with one hand and smacking her with the other. He thrust a little inside of her, biting her neck again, making the biju moan out in pleasure. Temari moved a little higher and took one testicle into her mouth and rolled the sensitive organ around with her tongue. She enjoyed the taste of Naruto's skin, she enjoyed the tightness of his sack. She may not get to taste his cum, but she would be damned if she didn't contribute to his orgasm. Ayame wasn't going to be the only one allowed to do that. Ayame rocked her hips downwards into Naruto's thrusts, giving soft sounds of pleasure as her wa spanked over and over again. She moved one hand from around Naruto's neck to her and leaned back a bit, squeezing her and forcing Naruto's gaze to them. She even dragged her nail over her nipple, scraping it to cause more pleasure. Naruto shuddered and paused as he felt Temari ever so slightly press down on his testicle with her teeth. It didn't hurt, it actually felt quite pleasant. He soon began to rock his hips a bit more, adjusting his hands to hold at Ayame's spine and he leaned his head down and licked along the blue markings, over the areola of her nipple that was taut with her need. Ayame rocked her hips against Naruto's, trying to get him to her more. Damn it, Temari-chan, she whined a little bit. She couldn't blame the blonde Suna girl, after all Ayame had been doing far worse than distracting Naruto. But Ayame was so close, the coil of her orgasm was at its very tightest, and she was so close to being sent over the edge, but it just wasn't happening. Temari smirked a little bit before she took the second testicle in her mouth, holding Naruto's balls in her mouth and on them gently. She could feel every little twitch they gave as Naruto no doubt felt his orgasm building and he was keeping it back for as long as possible. That wouldn't do in her opinion. She began to a little, rolling her tongue over his balls. Naruto pulled back from Ayame's nipple and grit his teeth. Oh, he said and thrust faster into Ayame's mouth, feeling Temari's mouth pull on his balls a bit as she. It wasn't painful, it was quite a sensation. Naruto moaned out, arching his back as he pumped into Ayame's body. Ayame jerked a bit in Naruto's arms. The warmth of his cum spilling inside of her set off her orgasm and she squirmed in his arms as she let out a loud and long moan. She wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck, both of them, and pulled herself up to him, kissing him on the mouth, her tongue working into his mouth. She then pulled off of him before making her way to the couch to sit down. Temari stood up in front of Naruto for a moment. She bit her lip before she hugged the blonde. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You're right, I could have just asked and explained what was happening. It wasn't the shinobi way of doing things, but given she spent 2.5 months at the mercy of Ayame, she would rather have just asked." Naruto patted Temari on the back. "You're fine, Temari-chan. You're also free," he said and bit his thumb. He swiped his blood across a seal on the back of Temari's neck that acted as a collar so she could be traced. The seal broke, freeing her. Temari touched her neck a bit before looking at Naruto. "Thank you. Perhaps we could do this again sometime. It'll take me a bit of time to get everything together to leave, so would you mind if I continued to live next door?" Naruto shook his head. "Not at all, Temari-chan. But you might want to go get a shower before heading off to do stuff." "I'm using my own." Naruto turned and headed to take a shower. Aikibi got up and followed, grabbing Naruto on the "So big boy, can I join you?" she asked, biting his earlobe. Naruto rolled his eyes a bit. "No, Ichi-chan, you can't join me. We'll never get done by the time the hot water runs out." He slapped her on the "Besides, you had plenty. And he was tired from having 5 orgasms." Naruto closed the door behind him and started the shower up, stepping in and letting the hot water beat down on him. He made the shower quick and he dried off before walking out. Naruto watched Aikibi walk in, an obvious sway to her hips. "Last chance, Naruto-kun," she said seductively before she started the water. Naruto really wanted to go into the shower with her until she couldn't move, but damn it, he needed to rest a little bit. He grabbed the book from his nightstand and flipped it open, going to the level up page. "Congratulations. You had with the Aikibi no Tanuki plus 2500 PTS. Congratulations. You had with Sabaku no Temari plus 1100 PTS. Congratulations. You received the Bronze Revenge Medal plus 750 PTS, plus 5 demonic chakra levels." Naruto banked the level up he got. "Congratulations. You received the Bronze Blondes Do It Better Medal plus 750 PTS. Congratulations. You received the Bronze Repetition Medal plus 900 PTS. Congratulations. You received the Bronze 3x3 Medal plus 1000 PTS. Congratulations. You received the Bronze Charitable Medal plus 500 PTS, plus 5 Divine Chakra levels. Congratulations. You received the Bronze Sand Sirens Medal plus 1500 points, plus 5 skill points." That was a new one for Naruto, but he banked the second level up. Naruto headed to the medals page. "Revenge, Bronze. Dominate one woman that has dominated you before. Blondes do it better, Bronze. Have 2 different blondes at the same time. Repetition. Have 6 different women on more than one occasion." Naruto counted them off: Tsunami, Ayame, Mikoto, Karin, Kin, Aikibi, and now Temari. It made sense to him. 3x3, Bronze. Have 3 threesomes with different women. Charitable, Bronze. Orgasm 5 times during a with 2 women or greater. Naruto looked at the last medal he received. Sand Sirens, Bronze. 2 of the 6 women from Sunagaku at the same time. Naruto then headed over to the stats page. He had 20 stat points to work with. 5 from leveling up to level 33, 5 from leveling up to 34, 5 from the perk that gave him an additional 5 every 2 levels, and then 5 from the Sand Princess's medal. Naruto put 5 into his intelligence, 10 into his strength, and then 5 into his reflexes. Naruto went to the skills page. He had 108 7 points to work with, more than plenty for what he had in mind. 15 points went into Kenjutsu, leveling up to master level. Sword God or Sword Demon. Naruto tapped the Sword God. Your skills with Kenjutsu allow you to use all manner of blades like they are an extension of yourself. You can become familiar with the styles of a sword by just looking at it and holding it. Naruto tapped the Sword Demon. Your skills with Kenjutsu are refined and lethal. You can cut a god down if they step in your path. Using an unfamiliar sword lowers your Kenjutsu skill by 50 points, while using one that is familiar will raise your Kenjutsu skill by 50 points. This was a rather difficult choice for Naruto. On one hand, he wasn't sure if he would use another sword besides the Kusanagi or his mother's sword, and that by taking the Sword Demon mutation, he would be even better with them. However, on the off chance he did get another sword, he would have to train extensively with it to learn it. Naruto got a coin and flipped it. Catching it out of the air, he slapped it onto his hand. Heads. Sword God it is, he said and selected Sword God. Naruto left Genjutsu alone, he would no doubt get that through some other means really quickly. Ninja Master got 90 points, bringing it up to Master level. Ninja Master or Ninja Assassin. Naruto tapped Ninja Master. Your body is honed and you barely waste any chakra as you launch off your techniques. Abilities using chakra gain an additional 10 points with use. Naruto tapped Ninja Assassin. You are like the wind, unseen but known. Abilities affected by Ninja Master skill that do not use chakra gain an additional 10 points with use. Naruto flipped a coin again. Heads. Ninja Master. He selected it quickly. 72 points left. Naruto skimmed through the skills and spotted one. It wasn't one for him, but rather for the girls. Naruto poured 80 points into it. Massaging. Apprentice level. Your massages can make a woman horny 25% of the time and feel good 75% of the time. Note: Medical Jutsu offers a 10% bonus to the massaging skill. Naruto snapped the book shut and put it away. He had one other thing to do before he could end things. He stood up and headed out towards the hospital. It didn't take him long to find Sakura, who was trying to gain access to Sasuke's room. Naruto stepped up beside Sakura and looked at the Anbu guard. What's the problem with Sakura? Naruto asked. The Anbu says I don't have clearance to go see Sasuke-kun. Sakura said. She looked over to the blonde. Naruto nodded for a moment. Not surprising. No offense Sakura, but you're just a genin right now and you weren't part of the retrieval squad. He said before looking at the Anbu. Do I have clearance to enter? The ANBU's head turned to Naruto. You do Chunin Uzumaki, you were in charge of the retrieval unit sent out for the patient as well as the one that brought him back. The Anbu stepped aside and let Naruto enter the room. Naruto glanced back at Sakura. Give it a few days, Sakura, things like this take time. He said before he closed the door and headed over to Sasuke, who was awake. Dobi. Sasuke said simply while he watched the blonde sit down. His back still hurt like hell, and he no longer was hearing voices in his head. Naruto scratched his chin for a moment. You do know your stunt just bit you in the right. Tsunade isn't going to let you do a whole lot at the moment and you'll be under a whole lot of scrutiny. Sasuke sighed before nodding. I know. I don't know what came over me. I was beaten soundly by those 4 guys that came into the village, it looked like such a powerful thing they had. Naruto nodded for a moment. I want you to think on this for a moment, Sasuke. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's why we work in teams, so that we can take stronger opponents down together and one of the teams doesn't get a big head. Naruto stood up. You need to apologize to your mom, and do something nice for her when you get the hell out of here. He then turned and started to walk away. Dobi. Naruto stopped. When I get strong enough to face off against Itachi, will you be there to watch my back? Naruto glanced over his shoulder at Sasuke. Count on it, Tem. Had Sasuke said, to kill Itachi, Naruto would have said no. But Sasuke wanted backup when he faced off against Itachi, something completely different. And I'm sure Sakura will be there to heal us up as well. Naruto then left the room, letting Sasuke to think. Naruto had his own stuff to do. And that's the end of part 5. How did you like this part? Tell me in the comments, which girl is your favorite in Naruto's harem so far? If you want part 6, then please like this video and comment, next part. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'll see you in the next part. Take care, bye.